starting the spoilers from the original Spider-Man. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251. Toby Spider grumbled in a low voice, "They are really too much." "Yeah." Harry nodded, and then he saw a spider in a glass cover. "Look at that spider. Some spiders change color with the environment. This is a defense mechanism," Toby Spider explained. Harry rolled his eyes speechlessly and said, "Peter, what makes you think I want to know this?" Toby Spider obviously didn't understand the situation. Who wouldn't want to? After 5 years of hard research, the Columbia University Genetic Research Center has these genetic blueprints, making the impossible in the past become true. Harry looked at Mary Jane's back and joked to Toby Spider, "Do you want to talk to her?" Toby Spider, who was still very inferior at this time, immediately refused. "Oh, no. Come on. You go." "Peter, I still remember that he didn't dare to go up, and then I went up to talk to you." Harry turned his head and looked at Mary Jane and smiled. Mary Jane nodded gently. Harry also told her that spiders can change color, which surprised her. When Harry heard Mary Jane talking about this, his face changed involuntarily because he suddenly remembered that it seemed that it was Toby Spider who told him. Then he told Mary Jane what Toby Spider said exactly as he learned it. When he thought that this might be known to the whole world, Harry couldn't help but cover his face. This is not just Toby Spider's dark history. This is clearly his dark history too. Fortunately, Toby Spider doesn't care about this matter, and it won't affect their relationship. Harry just walked to Mary Jane and heard her muttering, "Disgusting." Hearing this, Harry immediately echoed, "Yeah, disgusting." But Mary Jane looked at him and suddenly changed the subject and said, "I like it." Harry immediately followed up, "Yeah, me too. Did you know? Spiders can change color. They have integrated into the natural environment." Mary Jane felt a little incredible when she heard this. "Really?" "Yeah. That's a defense mechanism," Harry said with certainty. Although he had just heard this from Toby Spider, he did not doubt Toby Spider's ability at all. "Really cool," Mary Jane said with a double meaning, referring to the spider and being surprised that Harry actually knew this. Toby Spider looked at Harry and Mary Jane with a dull look. Harry turned his head and looked at him, as if to say, "Learn how to pick up girls from me. Practice what you have learned." Harry is really good at picking up girls. No wonder Mary Jane dated him after graduation. George Stacy looked at Harry and smiled. His wife Helen came out of the kitchen with dishes. She nodded and looked at Toby Spider. Toby Spider noticed her gaze and touched his head awkwardly. Now that he was with Gwen, it was better for him to have less contact with Mary Jane. "Okay, let's get ready for dinner." Helen knew that Toby Spider had been secretly in love with Mary Jane for many years, but Gwen didn't care, let alone them. On the contrary, they all agreed that Mary Jane's loss of Toby Spider was her own loss, but they also wished Mary Jane and Harry to be happy forever. Use synthetic RNA to create a new genome, and then combine it with the genes of 3 spiders, and create these 15 super spiders by designing genes. At this time, Mary Jane counted the number of spiders in the glass cover and found something wrong. Only 14. The female teacher asked in confusion, "What did you say? One is missing." Mary Jane added. Harry also echoed, "Yeah." The female teacher took a look and didn't care much. I guess some researchers took it away for experiments. But they didn't notice that there was a spider crawling on its web above their heads. Harry was still showing off the knowledge he had just heard to Mary Jane. "Do you know that this is the largest electron microscope on the East Coast?" At this time, the black teacher came over with a bad face when she was introducing it. "You kept nagging. Let's talk about how to listen carefully." As he said that, he pulled Harry aside to lecture her, leaving Mary Jane with her lips pursed and her head lowered, trying not to laugh. Looking at Mary Jane, who was alone, Toby Spider mustered up the courage to step forward and greet her. "Hey, can I take a picture? I want to take a picture with students." Mary Jane happily agreed. Someone wants to take a photo of her. Mary Jane seems very happy after she poses. Toby Spider starts to take photos of her. At this moment, the super spider on Toby Spider's head slowly fell down, and Toby Spider was obsessed with taking photos of Mary Jane. He didn't even notice that the spider fell on his finger. It happened that Mary Jane was called away by her classmates at this time, and Toby Spider just thanked Mary Jane. The spider on his hand bit it hard, and the severe pain made Toby Spider subconsciously swing his arm and throw the spider to the ground. Toby Spider squatted down and watched the spider that bit him run away, then stood up and looked at the wound on his hand. At this time, someone called him away, and Toby Spider left directly. The 3 different genes of red, green, and blue were successfully combined on the display screen behind him, as if to indicate that Toby Spider's genes were successfully matched. The head of the Genetic Research Center of Columbia University confirmed their guess until then. When Sky Curtin exposed Peter Parker as Spider-Man, they also suspected whether it was related to the spider they had lost for a while. After the students left, they found that a spider was indeed missing, but later they successfully found its body on the roof, so they didn't care about it. Although the time was too coincidental, Peter Parker happened to come to visit, and the possibility that the little spider who could not escape successfully escaped and bit Peter Parker specifically without poisoning him was too small. This matter is too outrageous. Although some researchers insist that Peter Parker's mutation may be related to the super spiders they studied, no one dares to bet, because these super spiders are extremely toxic. Only a little bit of toxin can poison an elephant. No one dares to use it for human experiments, and no one dares to take that responsibility. After all, no one is a fool. If something goes wrong, the higher-ups will definitely blame it, so they have always been suspicious, and there is no direct evidence to prove that the birth of Spider-Man is related to this. Chapter 252. At the same time, the whole world was in turmoil again. No one expected that there would be as many as 15 mutant spiders in the first generation. The phone of Columbia University's Genetic Research Center was blown up at once, and countless people who came here after smelling the smell began to frantically pursue these super spiders. The head of Columbia University's Genetic Research Center was overwhelmed for a while, but he had to stand up and declare that they had conducted similar experiments before. Although it was not a human experiment, it was also a live experiment, and the results of the experiment all ended in failure without exception. But even so, some people still didn't believe it. Many people thought that maybe they wanted to secretly create Spider-Man, and conspiracy theories were everywhere for a while. As the chief of the police station, George Stacy had a strong sense of politics. He warned Toby Spider that he must not get involved in such things. He had to stay out of it, so that some people would not think that Toby Spider was colluding with others to protect the rights of the only Spider-Man. At the same time, it was also to prevent some people from wanting to use these super spiders for experiments to cause disasters and then burn him. Toby Spider was naturally very clear about this, but he didn't quite understand it. Sky said repeatedly that his becoming Spider-Man was not accidental, but a predetermined fate. It was also clearly stated that almost only Peter Parker could become Spider-Man. So why are there always people who are still obsessed with it? Is it really true that they will not turn back until they hit the South Wall? Or do they have to make a big fuss like Dr. Lizard before they can give up? Toby Spider couldn't figure it out, and he was too lazy to think about it. Now he is very satisfied. His uncle and aunt are very safe. Gwen is also protected by Venom, and George's family is not to mention. He is the chief of the police station. Tony and the others didn't know about the turmoil in the first universe. They were more surprised that Harry kept using the knowledge he gained from Toby Spider to gain a sense of presence on Mary Jane's side. Tony also had to admit that Harry was a man who could pick up girls. As for the spider that bit Toby Spider, Tony didn't understand biology, and even if he wanted to, he couldn't do it. Banner knows biology, but he is also very busy. In addition to helping Tony build armor, he also has to deal with the Cosmic Cube, not to mention that he has to find a way to control the Hulk, not to mention that now there is one more thing, researching nanomaterials. Egghead thought of Hank Pym, who is also a person with great achievements in genetics. When he watched Civil War before, he felt that Scott's Ant-Man suit was very familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen it for a while. Later, He checked the information and found that it was the Ant-Man suit of Hank Pym, the first generation of Ant-Man, but he didn't know why it fell on Scott in the future. He decided to communicate with Dr. Pym about this matter and try to pull him back to S.H.I.E.L.D. At the same time that Toby was bitten by the spider, Osborn Industries was experiencing the incident that Skyscreen had played before, in which General Thor of the Ministry of Defense forced Norman to develop a physical enhancer within 2 weeks. In the old house where Toby Spider and his family used to live, God said, "Let's have some light." There will be light immediately. 40 watts of soft light. Uncle Ben was installing the light bulb while talking to himself. Good boy. God will be very happy, but be careful not to fall. Aunt May chuckled and told Ben to be careful. I've already fallen. Mary, I've been a senior technician for 35 years and I've been laid off. What else can this mean? I've hit the bottom. Ben got off the chair while complaining. Aunt May didn't pay attention to his complaints. She pointed to the cabinet behind him and shouted to him, "Pass me the green plate." Companies are currently laying off employees in order to increase profits. Uncle Ben still had no intention of stopping. Aunt May comforted him. "Oh, Ben, you will find a job. Well, look at what's in the newspaper. There are job ads. See what jobs are there." At this time, Uncle Ben saw a newspaper beside him and picked it up. He sat at the table and read, "Computer salesman, computer engineer, computer analyst." God, even computers need analysts now. I'm 68 years old. It's too difficult to learn computers when I'm old, and I have to support my family. Uncle Ben felt very tired. He had to go to work at such an old age. "I love you. Peter loves you too. You are the most responsible man I have ever seen. We have also suffered, but we still survived," Aunt May said, and kissed Uncle Ben on the forehead. At this time, Toby Spider came back, and Aunt May said happily, "Hi, child, you are back, just in time for dinner. Are you okay? How was the class trip?" Uncle Ben asked today the situation of the day, but Toby Spider felt something was wrong with his body at this time. "I feel uncomfortable. I'm going to sleep first. Don't you want to eat something?" Aunt May asked worriedly. "I've eaten." Toby Spider ran straight upstairs without looking back. Uncle Ben stood up a little worriedly and asked, "Did you take pictures, Peter?" "I'm going to sleep. I'm fine," Toby Spider said, and walked directly into his room. Uncle Ben felt that Toby Spider was very strange today. What happened to him? "Oh, Uncle Ben, I remember that the sky curtain appeared after that day, and my life has been completely changed since then." Toby Spider cut a piece of steak and looked at the sky curtain and recalled. "Yeah, you told me about this. At that time, Harry lent you a new house to live in. It is said that there were reporters outside the old house at that time." Gwen also smiled. Toby Spider told her a lot of things that happened at the time. Toby Spider also took Gwen to visit Norman. George rolled a circle of pasta with a fork and said, "Yeah, at that time, I had to send police to maintain order to prevent your old house from being demolished." Ha ha ha. "Really? I didn't know about this." Toby Spider smiled awkwardly. George put the pasta into his mouth, swallowed it and said, "This is a duty as police officers." Parker took off his clothes after returning to the room, revealing his not very strong body inside, and looked at himself in the mirror. He felt his eyelids getting heavier and heavier, his face became pale, his breathing became more and more rapid, and finally his eyes rolled over and fell on the bed. Then he fell to the floor again, but he still pulled a sheet over himself with his last consciousness. Toby Spider felt cold all over, trembling all over, sweating, and a big bag had unknowingly bulged on his right hand where the spider bit him. The words that the female teacher had said seemed to echo in his mind again, and a new gene was embedded in Toby Spider's original gene. He was completely changed from the inside out, and Spider-Man was born. Chapter 253. It seems to be similar to what happened to me at that time. I also feel uncomfortable all over. The second generation Gwen watched the process of Toby Spider's mutation and felt deeply. "Yeah, I also experienced a similar situation at that time, but it was not as serious as yours." Garfield Spider nodded. When Gwen mutated, he was also shocked. After catching Legitrator, he didn't even bother to ask about his parents, but went straight back to Gwen's home. Fortunately, Gwen also successfully woke up and became Spider-Man in the end. You almost scared your mother to death at that time and broke things at home. George complained about Gwen lightly. Daddy. Gwen stomped her feet lightly and looked at George dissatisfiedly. This matter can't be passed, right? Toby Spider, lying on the ground, opened his eyes and woke up. He habitually put on glasses, but suddenly found that his myopia was cured. Strange. Toby Spider put his glasses away, accidentally glanced at the mirror, and was shocked to find that his body had become much stronger. The muscles and lines on his body are completely different from what they were before he fell asleep yesterday. Toby Spider is feeling incredible. At this time, Aunt May knocked on the door. Peter, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Toby Spider responded and continued to look at himself in the mirror. Better? Any changes? Aunt May continued to ask. Toby Spider looked down at his body and responded, changes? Yes, a lot of changes. Hearing this, Aunt May was relieved and urged, hurry up. We are going to be late. Toby Spider realized that he still had to study today, right? He started to get dressed, but accidentally saw Mary Jean next door dressing herself through the window. He raised his eyebrows. Okay. Uncle Ben was drinking coffee downstairs. Toby Spider walked up the stairs quickly and jumped up halfway. He supported himself on the handrail with his hands and fell down on the wall opposite the stairs. Aunt May saw his action and said dissatisfiedly, really? Haha, I thought you were sick. Uncle Ben put down the cup and looked at Toby Spider's lively appearance and was relieved. I'm much better. Although Toby Spider didn't know what happened to him, it didn't affect his good mood. After saying that, he said goodbye to the two. Aunt May shouted behind him, do you need anything? Do you have your lunch money? Uncle Ben also shouted, hey, little genius. Don't forget to come back and paint the kitchen after class. Got it? Okay. Uncle Ben, don't start before I come back. Toby Spider pointed at Uncle Ben and agreed. Uncle Ben also pointed at him, then gave a thumbs up. Don't stand me up. After Toby Spider left, he turned to Aunt May and said, young people have strong hormones. They are all like this. Speaking of which, it seems that the painting of the kitchen has never been carried out. Uncle Ben recalled that they did want to do so at that time. Yes. But it's not a pity the bucket of paint is used here. Aunt May nodded. But because the matter of the canopy was interrupted, although they once moved back, but because of some things later, this matter has been shelved. And now that they have moved to a new home, they have no chance to go back and paint the kitchen. Wow. Awesome. Such muscles. Tony looked at Toby Spider's figure with envy. To be honest, he dreamed of having such a strong body. Unfortunately, it is probably impossible for him to exercise by himself in this life, unless someone can develop a similar medicine to give him an injection directly. Captain America looked at this scene and recalled his former extremely thin self. It was only after receiving the super soldier serum that he became strong today. However, Toby Spider's enhancement effect is obviously much better than his. He can even stop a train that is accelerating at full speed. It is simply not a power that humans can possess. Toby Spider just went out, and Mary Jean next door also happened to push the door out, and her father scolded her behind her. Don't care what your mother says, I have the final say. You are a waste. You will always be a waste. Just like your mother. Mary Jane said with red eyes and crying, I'm going to school. Who doesn't let you go to school? Toby Spider looked at the father and daughter who quarreled every day and followed Mary Jane silently. Toby Spider looked at her back and began to talk to himself. Hey, Mary Jane. Then he felt dissatisfied and repeated, hey, Mary Jane. Maybe you don't know, but I've been your neighbor since I was 6 years old. I was wondering, can I go out with you? Go out and play together? I'm not sure. I think it's time to get to know each other better. It's okay if you don't want to. While he was talking, two classmates came to Mary Jane, and a girl asked her to get on the bus, so Mary Jane sat in the backseat happily. After Toby Spider finished his love words, he found that the school bus passed by him, and he ran after it. A classmate teased in the car, sorry, Parker, the bus is full. Take a taxi. Toby Spider chased the school bus as usual. After he caught up with it, he He slapped the school bus repeatedly. Hey, stop the car. Tell him to stop. But he accidentally stuck his palm to the poster on the bus and tore it off. The school bus gradually went away, leaving Parker shaking his palm to shake off the poster, and finally he pulled it off with his other hand. He looked at his palm with a strange look on his face. My poor child, have you always been like this? Helen looked at Toby Spider with heartache. She treated him as her own child and felt very distressed about it. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Everything is fine, isn't it? Toby Spider waved his hand, indicating that she didn't need to worry about herself. Gwen looked at Toby Spider's smiling face and felt sad for him. I will always be with you, Peter. She took his hand and smiled. Yeah. Toby Spider nodded and covered Gwen's hand with his hand. At that time, all his classmates wanted to find a hole to hide in, because the exposure of this scene made many people realize that they were such a person. As a result, many classmates who have entered the society have suffered some cold violence, and some have even been laid off. But all this has nothing to do with Toby Spider. It is their own fault and no one else can be blamed. And Mary Jane lowered her head slightly and sighed. For a moment, she did not dare to look up at Harry, both because of Toby Spider's love words to her, and because her father was a rude and arrogant guy who made her lose face. Harry didn't care much. Anyway, it was all in the past, not to mention that to some extent, it was Harry who cheated on Toby Spider. It's just that Toby Spider let it go and chose the better Gwen. As for Mary Jane's father, there is even less to say. His daughter is with a rich man, so he naturally dare not make trouble again. Chapter 254. At school, as the bell rang, Toby Spider came to the cafeteria and was eating fries with some ketchup on them. At this time, Mary Jane passed by Toby Spider with a plate full of food. Toby Spider's mood improved when he saw her. But Mary Jane didn't care about Toby Spider and walked straight past him. At this time, Toby Spider's spider sense suddenly started. I saw Mary Jane stepped on a puddle of orange juice, slipped and fell backwards, and the tray in her hand was subconsciously thrown high. Toby Spider immediately turned around and hugged her waist, then quickly reached out to catch the tray and successfully caught all the food. Mary Jane looked at this scene in surprise and exclaimed, "Wow, what a quick reaction." It was the first time she noticed that Toby Spider actually had this ability. The two smiled at each other, and Mary Jane said gratefully, "Thank you." Toby Spider suppressed his excitement and said lightly, "Nothing." Aunt May touched Peter Parker's head and looked at Toby Spider, who began to show his skills, as if she saw that her little nephew would have such an ability in the future. Whenever she thought of the touching words that Spider-Man said before the Civil War, she felt extremely proud of Spider-Man. Wow. So handsome. The first generation Peter Parker. Banner exclaimed at this scene. Yeah. You can do it if you have that spider sense. Tony said with a little sourness. To be honest, this scene was really cool, especially when he did it in front of his crush. Tony, I think some people are jealous. Rod poked his head out and looked at Tony teasingly. Oh, come on. Why would I be envious? Okay, I admit it, I'm indeed envious. Who wouldn't want to do this? Huh? Who wouldn't want to do this? Tony tried to cover it up at first, but found it pointless, so he just admitted it and threw the question to others. Hearing Tony's words, Natasha rolled her eyes and didn't want to pay attention to him. Barton touched his nose and didn't say anything. The second generation Gwen looked at Garfield's expression curiously, but was discovered by Garfield. He smiled lightly and didn't say anything. He was very confident that he would never be worse than Toby Spider in this regard. His spider sense has had many highlights. Mary Jane looked at Toby Spider again and said in surprise, "Hey, so your eyes are blue. I didn't notice it, even when I was wearing glasses. Did you change your contact lenses?" Finding that Mary Jane noticed him, Toby Spider was so excited that he didn't know how to answer for a while. He could only raise his eyebrows and slightly raise the corners of his mouth. Looking at Toby Spider's appearance, Mary Jane raised her eyebrows. "Well, see you later." Then she left with the plate. Toby Spider looked at her back reluctantly and sat back down after a few seconds. Then he began to be very dissatisfied with his performance just now and couldn't help but sighed a little decadently. Then he found that his hand seemed to have touched something, and he raised his hand to find that the fork was stuck on his palm. Toby Spider felt very puzzled. The fork was tightly stuck to his hand. He shook it twice and found that he couldn't get rid of it, and looked around and found that no one was paying attention to him. So he tried to take the fork off with his hand and found that some strange spider silk stretched out from his wrist. As he pulled hard, a spider silk shot out directly from his wrist and then stuck to the dinner plate on the opposite table. Because he was afraid of being discovered by the people next to him, Toby Spider immediately pulled hard, but he used too much force and threw the plate behind him. Toby Spider's spider sense was activated, causing him to automatically bend down to avoid the plate, but flesh behind him was in trouble. The plate hit him directly on the head, and a lot of corn and vegetables and other things were all over him. This sudden situation scared him and the people opposite him. His brothers laughed unkindly. After Toby Spider found out that it was flesh, he turned his head away with a guilty conscience and got up and left. Flesh turned his head and was about to find the culprit, but he saw Toby Spider, who left in a hurry, and the plate was still stuck by the spider silk he shot from his wrist. The people around him also noticed this strange situation, and they all stood up and looked at this scene curiously. "What's wrong? He's so weird. Did you see it?" Toby Spider ignored the doubts of his classmates and ran quickly towards the door of the cafeteria with the plate. Flash looked at the Toby Spider running farther and farther away and said in disbelief, "Parker, on the other side." Toby Spider pulled the plate and quickly pushed open the door of the cafeteria and walked out, but the plate behind him was stuck in the door. After being blocked by the door, the plate clearly showed signs of being pulled continuously by someone, and it was obvious that Toby Spider outside was pulling the spider silk hard. The classmates laughed when they saw this scene. In the corridor, Toby Spider checked his wrist while walking quickly towards his locker. But he didn't notice that Flesh was walking towards him aggressively behind him. Ha 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 ha. It's so funny, Peter, this guilty little expression of being afraid of being discovered for doing something wrong. So cute. Dr. Otto grinned and laughed very loudly. He liked Toby Spider's black history very much. Toby Spider covered his face again and looked at the table helplessly. "Peter, it's nothing. Everyone has had this kind of thing. I like you more like this." Gwen gently grabbed Toby Spider's hand and chuckled. At this moment, Toby Spider was more like Peter Parker than Spider-Man. The original Flesh's face changed. Seeing this scene, he immediately recalled the punch he received at that time, which made him lose face in school and in front of the whole world. Tony immediately recalled this scene and ordered Jarvis to play the original video of Cheyenne Moo. It turned out that it was right. Then Flesh attacked from behind, but he was easily dodged by Toby Spider's spider sense and was punched several meters away. In the end, it ended in a big embarrassment. So it was connected here. Why didn't you play it before? Rod saw the video projected by Jarvis, suddenly realized and complained. Who knows? Don't guess what Cheyenne Moo is thinking. Tony seized the opportunity to return the hatred that Rod had teased him before. Maybe we should give him some face, just like the narrator said. Banner guest. Oh, please. This segment will only make people admire his experience and his ability to maintain his original heart after gaining superpowers, right? Tony turned his head and refuted Banner again. Banner could only shrug helplessly after hearing this. Okay, it looks like the sky screen is over, and it will probably take a break for a while. Do you have anything else to say? If not, we'll leave. Tony stood up and looked at everyone and asked, and everyone shrugged to indicate that it was okay, so everyone dispersed. Chapter 255. After reading about the past of the first generation of Spider-Man, let's continue to tell the story of the third generation of Spider-Man. A painting appeared on the sky with simple drawings of the Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, Black Widow, Captain America, Hawkeye and others. Around them were burning buildings, broken ground under their feet, Stark Industries with an A written on it behind them, and a vortex-shaped wormhole above their heads. The world is very different now. I say, look at this painting. There are aliens on it, and there are big green guys demolishing houses. When I was a kid, I drew cowboys and Indians. Adrian Toombs, who had not yet become a vulture, sighed as he looked at the painting. The correct term is Native Americans, but it doesn't matter. His companion corrected him. Yeah. Let me tell you. This is actually not bad. Right? Toombs said with a little pride. Yeah. That's right. This kid has a bright future. His companion agreed. That's right. Yeah. There's a long way to go, maybe. Toombs took off his glasses and looked up, only to see the dilapidated Stark building standing in front of them. Oh, what happened? Is this what happened after the Battle of New York? Tony was a little restless when he saw his building in such a war-torn state. Egghead squinted at Stark Industries, recalling the painting that was so simple that it couldn't be simpler, and it could be seen that there were several very recognizable people. Is the vortex on the painting a space wormhole? It's incredible. I really want to know how it was formed. Banner stared at the sky with his eyes wide open. It looks like the situation is very bad. But it doesn't seem that bad. Rhodes tilted his neck. He had always believed that, if the Battle of New York was an alien invasion, then New York should have been razed to the ground. At the very least, they should have suffered extremely terrible losses, but judging from the situation in the sky alone, the result seems that this disaster is not that serious. Is it that the alien invaders are very weak and do not have an overwhelming advantage? Or is it that the aliens invaded too quickly and the Avengers found a way to close the wormhole and block their reinforcement? But it is also possible that it was affected by the explosion of the strategic nuclear bomb on Tony Stark's back. Of course, everyone thinks that the closure of the wormhole is more likely to end the war. After all, the other party can reach the Earth across the universe, and a nuclear bomb is really nothing. Tony pursed his lips. It seems that the time for his armor legion to go online is getting more and more urgent. He feels that he may need to work harder to build armor. At the same time, the world was also in an uproar because of Tom's few words. Some speculations were confirmed that New York was invaded by real aliens. It was not an attack launched by some countries on the other side of the ocean as many people speculated, but an attack launched by real aliens. The existence of aliens once again caused a panic around the world. At this time, Nick Fury also received a call from his superior, asking him to go to a meeting and explain his plans for the future war. Pierce asked him to explain how to arrange the Avengers, because he might need to work with the military at that time. Except for America, other countries of the United Nations are even considering whether to send a joint garrison to New York to resist this global catastrophe. Just near the Stark building, you can see a giant creature as tall as a house lying on the ground, with workers working on it, and Toombs and others are busy below. A worker tried to saw off some parts with his tools. Toombs stopped him immediately after seeing it. No. Hey. You can't saw this thing open. These alien things are very hard. You have to use their things to pry it open. As he said this, he took the Chittora's things and demonstrated it again, and easily pried off those parts. See? Understand? No problem. Toombs handed him the stuff and patted the worker's arm in satisfaction, and then he saw a late worker. Oh. Hey. So glad you can join us. Good afternoon. Yeah. My alarm didn't go off. He explained. That's right. It's your alarm. Listen, just like I told you before, go and stack those armor plates. This is a big business for us. See, he said, these aliens, the thing is very hard. Their own tools can't break it. Rhodes immediately pointed out the key point in Toombs' words. Yeah. Indeed, if these things are made by a civilization that can leave its own planet, then the materials they use must be extraordinary. Tony nodded in agreement. Didn't anyone notice that big guy that is as big as a house? That thing seems to be a living thing. I saw huge and dense teeth. Banner reminded everyone. Tony frowned and asked Jarvis to take out the picture. Sure enough, it was similar to a creature as Banner expected. What kind of creature can be so big? And it looks like the reflection of its shell is similar to metal? Tony squinted his eyes and looked at the Leviathan beast that appeared in the sky. Maybe it's a biological weapon. Or maybe this thing itself is a creature. The universe is very big. Maybe there are some strange creatures. Banner guessed the information of the Leviathan. He was an expert in this area, and no one else could get involved. But because the amount of information was too little, Banner couldn't say anything, so he could only give up in disappointment. Tony also asked Jarvis to record all the useful information as usual for future use. Just as Toombs was speaking, a female voice sounded, "Everyone, please pay attention. According to Executive Order number 396B, all post-war cleanup operations are now under our jurisdiction. Thank you for your service. We will take over from here." "Who the hell are you?" Toombs asked, looking at the group of uninvited guests. A man in a suit and tie answered arrogantly with his hands on his waist, "Professionals." Toombs wanted to explain to them clearly, "Listen, I have a city contract to recycle all these things. Okay. It's signed with the city government, so." He was interrupted before he could finish his words. "I'm sorry, Mr. Toombs, but all recycling operations are now under our jurisdiction. Please hand in all the alien materials you have collected. Otherwise you may be prosecuted." Hearing that something seemed wrong, a worker secretly put the parts he had just removed into his pocket. Chapter 256. "Ma'am, what? Please come over here. Hey, ma'am, come on." Toombs still wanted to fight for it, but he quickly stepped forward to stop her. "Listen, I bought a truck to take this job, and I recruited a whole new team. These people have families to support, and I have a family too. I've thrown everything I have into it. I won't even be able to keep my house." Listening to Toombs' pleading, she said indifferently, "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't help." Then she turned around and wanted to leave. At this time, the man in a suit with a white hat sneered, "Maybe next time, don't be so arrogant." Hearing this, Toombs turned his head and looked at him with murderous eyes. "What did you say?" "Yeah, he is right. I'm overestimating my own abilities." He shrugged his shoulders, made a self-deprecating remark to his employees, and then suddenly punched him in the face. Seeing Toombs injuring people, the people being beaten and the agents present all pulled out their guns and pointed them at him, while his co-workers were about to step forward with crowbars to help. The woman just now saw the conflict being intensified and hurriedly stopped their behavior. "Stop, stop, stop. Put down the gun." She looked at Toombs and said, "If you have any dissatisfaction, you can go talk to my bosses." After saying that, she left without looking back. "Your bosses, who the hell are they?" Toombs yelled at her angrily. "Oh, this is really bad. He invested all his savings, but got nothing. Now this guy must hate his boss." Tony was busy building his own armor and sighed about the unfortunate situation of the Vulture. Rhodes, who was helping him, said, "This kind of thing is normal. How can you compete with others without power? It's such a big event. If it were me, I wouldn't feel comfortable handing these alien products to some ordinary citizens. That would be too dangerous, because from a safety perspective, no one can guarantee whether the stuff contains substances that are harmful to the human body without testing." Banner also agreed with Rhodes' statement and explained from another perspective why these people were sent to take over these jobs. "Yeah. And you can't guarantee whether these employees will secretly hide something, just like the guy who put the glowing thing in his pocket." Rhodes added another sentence and pointed out the worker who hid the things. "This situation is almost inevitable. There will definitely be people who are obsessed with it and secretly take it away and sell it. And it is difficult for them to stop it, because no one knows how wide the scope of this war is and how many alien items there are. It is difficult to be discovered if you hide a little secretly. There will definitely be these alien products circulating in the black market. What they can do is to minimize this situation. This requires a special department to manage these things." Tony was convinced by them, so he spread his hands and said, "It can only be considered that Mr. Toombs is unlucky. I hope our mayor can give him enough compensation." Toombs, who has not yet become a vulture, looked unhappy when he saw this scene. This incident made him realize that reality is so cruel. There are some things that people like him are not qualified to touch. So what if he signed a city contract with the city government? It is just a piece of waste paper to those high-ranking people. Fortunately, this scene has not happened in reality, and he is thinking about whether to leave New York to avoid being affected by the war, but it is too difficult to develop in a new city again. "Dad," Liz Allen, who was still a little girl, pulled his hand and shouted timidly. Toombs took a deep breath and picked her up. The next second, the TV was broadcasting the relevant information of the disaster control department, and Tony Stark's head was on it, and the host was explaining it. This joint department was established by Tony Stark Industries and the federal government. It's called the Disaster Control Department. It will be responsible for supervising the collection and storage of foreign objects and other alien products. Toombs watched the TV without saying a word. His co-worker sat beside him and said indignantly, "Now this bastard who made a mess of everything is actually being paid to clean up the mess." The tinkerer next to him agreed, while studying the Chittora's things. "Yeah. This is all black box operation." As he said, he tried it, and a fan was successfully started and floated up. Experts estimate that there are more than 1,500 tons of alien objects scattered throughout the tri-state area. At this time, a worker accidentally discovered that there is still a pile of alien items behind the truck. "Hey, boss. We still have a truckload of yesterday's goods. We should hand this in, right?" Hearing this, a black man immediately refused and said, "I won't deliver it." The tinker said regretfully, "This is a pity. We could have made some amazing things with these alien garbage." His words inspired the vulture. "I say, let's keep these things. The world is changing. It's time for us to change." Tony had just said that Toombs would hate her boss, but he didn't expect that her boss was himself. For a moment, he covered his face a little embarrassedly. Rhodes and Banner held back their laughter. Tony glanced at them. "Okay, laugh if you want to." "Really, why is it me again?" So the two began to laugh. Tony scratched his head and continued to work. What happened to Toombs was none of his business. He believed that Egghead would handle it. Wow. He seems to have become ambitious. Toby Spider sighed as he looked at Toombs, who was beginning to turn into a vulture. He could have been a good man, but life forced him to go astray. Uncle Ben sighed. He could guess what Toombs was thinking. Marco looked at the vulture and thought of himself in the sky. He was once forced by life to rob, which eventually led to his big mistake. The first generation Harry looked at Marco, who was leaning against the car with his head down and silent. He knew what he was thinking, patted his shoulder and said, "The past is over. You have to learn to look forward. Penny is still waiting for you at home. Go back." With Harry's funding and the support of Osborne Industries' latest medical technology, Marco's daughter Penny's condition has greatly improved and is almost the same as a normal person. Toby Spider occasionally visits Penny when he passes by their house, and sometimes takes Gwen to see her, and the little girl also smiles more. And Tom's face changed slightly. He was still hesitating whether to move out of New York before, but now that he had hidden these alien objects and was exposed by Sky Curtain, he had to move. He could bear the infamy, but his wife and daughter were innocent, and he couldn't implicate them. So Toombs strode back home with his daughter in his arms and immediately began to pack up. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257. Time flies and it is 8 years later. The workers of Toombs are still following him. They use the truckload of alien items to make many things. The tinker Phineas Mason is still in charge of researching and manufacturing weapons and equipment in the team. One of the team members picked up a weapon and pulled the trigger, and a powerful energy was launched. Instantly split the steel cabinet door in front of him in half. Seeing that there was no problem with the weapon, he put it in a box and sealed it. Then it was moved to the van, and then there was a picture of the money counting machine counting money, indicating that the gun was sold for a good price. A figure flew across the night sky, and the ceiling above the weapons manufacturing factory split apart, and 2 iron cages containing alien items were thrown down. Then the vulture fell from the sky, and behind him was a pair of huge steel wings with large turbines to provide lift for him to fly. After he took off his wings, he smiled at the tinker and said, "The goods are here, Mason. Business is booming." "Yeah." Mason responded happily. "What is that? Energy weapons? OMG. They have made such high-end weapons in just 8 years. Carlson said in amazement. "Oh my god. It's incredible. Is that Mason so powerful?" Captain America was also surprised, although Red Skull's subordinates had mastered similar weapons decades ago. But that was developed by a whole scientific research team. I didn't expect that Mason could make it with such simple conditions. Egghead squinted at the man called Mason and had the idea of recruiting him. After all, this kind of genius is still very important, and the other party would do this kind of thing out of helplessness. At the same time, there were many people who had this idea. There were several Hydra alone, such as Pierce, Baron Strucker, and so on. Tums, who was packing up, changed his face and thought to himself that it was not good. This would definitely cause him some trouble. The scene changes, and a deliberately hoarse voice sounds. New York, Queens. It's a violent neighborhood, but this is where home is. Another voice interrupts him at this time. Who are you talking to? The camera turns, and Happy is seen driving in front. It turns out that the person recording the video is Spider-Man Peter Parker. No one, just recording some travel videos. You know you can't show this to anyone. Happy warned him. Spider-Man immediately replied, yeah, I know. Happy asked, then why are you using that voice for the narration? Spider-Man hesitated for a moment and replied, because it's fun. So why do they call you Happy? Happy. After hearing this question, Happy didn't want to pay attention to the chatty Spider-Man and reached out to press the switch to close the cab. The glass reflected Spider-Man holding a mobile phone. Come on. I won't carry your bag for you. Let's go. After arriving at the airport, Happy pointed to a private plane and urged Spider-Man. Hey, should I go to the bathroom before this? Spider-Man, who had never been on a plane, seemed a little nervous. Happy explained lightly, there is a bathroom on the plane. Entering the plane, Spider-Man looked around curiously like a little kid who had never seen the world. When he saw the cockpit, he exclaimed, whoa, unmanned? This is hot. Then he sat down opposite Happy. Happy wore sunglasses and looked at him speechlessly and asked, is this where you want to sit? Spider-Man answered without hesitation, yes. Is this your first time on a private plane? Happy asked him. This is my first time on a plane. Spider-Man's words made Happy suddenly realize, and then he got up and sat in another seat. At this time, the plane began to shake and make noises when it encountered air currents. Spider-Man asked in a panic, should it make this kind of sound? Happy ignored Spider-Man, adjusted his sitting position, and began to sleep, and soon he began to snore. SHHHHH. Spider-Man put his finger to his mouth, then quietly walked to Happy's side and put the phone against his face for everyone to hear his snoring. In the end, no one knew what Happy dreamed about, and he suddenly woke up from his dream, which scared Spider-Man a lot. Ha ha ha. Happy, you can snore too. Pepper laughed at Happy who was driving her. Yeah. Happy tilted his head and responded a little embarrassedly, feeling a little sorry for Happy. He cursed Spider-Man secretly and swore that he would never let him take pictures of himself when he was with him in the future. Tony and the others were also amused by Happy. It can be seen that Happy in the sky has a deep understanding of Spider-Man's chatterboxness. He almost avoided him. Aunt May smiled and sat on a chair watching this scene. Little Peter Parker was not at home. Tony arranged for him to go to a new school and asked someone to make sure that he would never be bullied at school. He would not allow the sins suffered by Tobey Spider and Garfield Spider to happen to Spider-Man again. If such a thing happened again under his protection, Tony felt that it was his own responsibility. After the plane arrived, the two were rushing to the hotel. Spider-Man took a selfie and said, no one told me why I was in Berlin or what I was doing. It seems to be related to Captain America's madness. Happy pointed to a room and said to Spider-Man, this is your room. Oh, we are neighbors. Spider-Man shouted. Happy retorted, we are not roommates. Put on your battle suit. Okay, Peter, it's your turn. Spider-Man was recording in front of the mirror in his own pajamas. Happy walked in and shouted, what the hell are you wearing? Spider-Man looked down at his clothes and said, this is my battle suit. Where is the box? Spider-Man looked at Happy in confusion. What box? When he saw Happy open a door, Spider-Man suddenly realized that there was space behind it. That's not mine. I thought it was a closet. This is still my room, and my room is bigger than I thought. Spider-Man walked in while talking, and Happy said a little collapsed. Go. Please. There. Oh. I saw the box. I saw the box. Then Spider-Man took the card on the box. A little upgrade. He opened the box and exclaimed after seeing the temporary suit Tony made for him. Whoa. My god. What is this? Happy urged Spider-Man. Put it on. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Seeing that Spider-Man was still talking endlessly, Happy had to raise his voice. Let's go. But I don't understand. Is this for me? Happy. Happy. Wait for me. When Spider-Man turned his head, Happy had already turned around and was about to leave the room, so he hurriedly said a few words to stop him. This is crazy. This is crazy. Look at this thing. Look at these glasses. This is the best day of my life. He turned the camera and took a selfie. Happy walked back to the room helplessly. If Spider-Man continued talking like this, he didn't know when he would arrive. Let's go. Come on. Chapter 258. Ha 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 ha. I can feel Happy's helplessness through the sky. He's too talkative. He talks more than you. Peter. The second generation Gwen slapped her thigh and laughed non-stop. Garfield Spider touched his nose awkwardly. He always thought he talked a lot during the battle, but he didn't expect the third generation to be even more nagging than him. His little mouth kept chattering the whole time. It feels like Happy is about to collapse. If possible, I feel like Happy wants to sew his mouth shut. Rod grinned. Ha ha ha. Yeah. If he wasn't defeated, Happy might really do that. Tony was also amused by Rod's words and raised his hand to show his agreement. That's what Happy must not hear, or he'll be very sad. The scene changes to the airport battle, with Spider-Man hiding and filming. Okay. There are Captain America, Iron Man, and Black Widow. Whoa. Who's that new guy? At this time, Tony yells, Pajama Baby. Oh. He called me. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Spider-Man, who has already changed into his battlesuit, puts his phone in place and jumps over to unexpectedly take Captain America's shield. Then there's the melee, and Spider-Man actually has the time to film himself. Okay. The craziest thing just happened. I just had a fight with Captain America. I stole his shield, and I threw it at him. Before he finishes his words, a scene of Scott growing bigger and grabbing Rhodes appears in the background. What the hell? He's getting bigger now. I'm leaving. Wait a minute. He put his phone down and pointed the camera at the sky. The next second, Rod flashed through the camera with a scream, corresponding to the scene where he was thrown out by Scott. Spider-Man was still very excited when he returned to the hotel. This is the best thing ever. Mr. Stark was like, hey, Pajama Baby. I flipped over and stole Captain America's shield. I was like, hey, hello, and then, hey, wait a minute. When Spider-Man was excited, Happy knocked on the door, so he flipped over. But Happy had already opened the room and walked in and said to Spider-Man helplessly, our walls are very thin here. Obviously, the chatterbox Spider-Man disturbed him. This is so funny. I'm sorry. Ha ha ha. Peter, I didn't mean it. A little girl wanted to hold back her laughter, but couldn't help it. Little Peter Parker covered his face and felt very socially dead. He didn't dare to raise his head. He wanted to appear on the sky screen like the first and second generations. But now he regretted it. It was too embarrassing, especially in a new class. Fortunately, the teacher was very gentle and many classmates were of high quality and didn't laugh at him. The little girl finally adjusted her expression and looked at him and encouraged, hey, Peter, you are really cool. You know, Spider-Man. It's really an honor to be your classmate, you know? Really? Little Peter Parker looked up at her with a surprised look. Yes. Come on. Failed man. Well, I will come on. I will be a good Spider-Man. Encouraged by his new classmates, little Peter Parker's mood obviously recovered a lot, and he immediately assured her happily. Inside the car, Tony looked at Spider-Man's camera curiously. What are you doing? Short video diary? After Spider-Man admitted it, Tony said indifferently, it's okay, I would do the same thing, if it were me. Happy in the front driver's seat interrupted, I told him not to do that. He films everything. I'm going to clear his memory card later. Okay. Hey, listen to me. We should take an alibi for your aunt. Are you ready? Spider-Man was about to say something, but was interrupted by Tony. Alibi? Spider-Man was obviously a little confused when he heard it, but he still obeyed Tony's instructions obediently. Are we starting? Get in the camera. Hey, May. How are you? What are you wearing? I hope it's a little revealing. Hearing Tony's words, Spider-Man's smile disappeared immediately, frowned and turned his head to look at Tony with a surprised face. Tony couldn't help laughing. Peter, this is inappropriate. Let's start over, and you can edit it later. 3, 2, 1. Hey, May. Oh my god. I want to tell you that your nephew did a great job this weekend at the Start Group internship. Everyone was amazed. He just after saying that, Happy suddenly honked the horn and stepped on the brakes. Come on. Then Happy apologized. Someone just changed lanes. Sorry. That's because you didn't take Queen's Road. Tony complained and then talked about Happy to the camera. Listen, Happy wants to be promoted to the asset management department. He was the head of the security department before, and before that he was just a driver. Seeing Tony reveal his privacy, Happy turned back and looked at him dissatisfied. That was a private conversation. I don't like to joke about this. I also mustered up the courage to speak up. Happy, I didn't see it. Do you want to be promoted? Pepper asked Happy, who was still driving, with a little surprise. Yes. Everyone wants to be promoted. Happy hesitated and admitted it. I understand. Everyone wants to work hard to climb up. I will help you propose to Tony to give you a raise. Pepper smiled. Thank you, Miss Potts. Happy said with sincere gratitude. Aunt May seemed a little happy to hear Tony's flirting with her, because it showed that she was still very attractive. At least Tony Stark could say so. Tony covered his face. This joke was not funny, and Tony had restrained himself a lot since his relationship with Pepper had made obvious progress. Pepper didn't feel anything, although she was sometimes angry that Tony was philandering, but she was not jealous of everything, and it was obvious that the sentence was just Tony's habit. Seriously, does he snore often? Tony continued to tease Happy. Fortunately, they had reached their destination, and Happy braked. We are here. The terminal. Seeing Happy's panic, Tony couldn't help laughing, and then he said, Happy, can you let us talk for a while? Do you want me to get off? Happy looked at Tony in the back seat. Take Peter's box out of the trunk. Chapter 259. Hearing Tony's words, Spider-Man put down his phone in disbelief. Can I keep this suit? Yes. We just talked about this. Tony put on his glasses. Do me a favor. Okay. Happy is also your contact. Don't put too much pressure on him. Don't do stupid things. I've seen his electrocardiogram. Okay. Don't do what I would do, and definitely don't do what I wouldn't do. He stretched out his finger and gestured. There is a narrow gray area in it. This is where you can play. Wait a minute. Does this mean I join the Avengers? Spider-Man looked at Tony with expectation. No. Tony denied his idea, and then told Happy outside the car to send it to the 7th floor. Seeing this, Spider-Man immediately said, I can take this. No need to bother you. Thank you. Happy thanked him and put the box aside and got in the car and waited. Spider-Man in the car looked at Tony expectantly. So, when is our next internship camp, you know? What? The next mission? Tony glanced at him. Yeah. Missions. Those missions. Spider-Man nodded repeatedly. We will contact you. Tony said perfunctorily, but it was not visible under the sunglasses. Do you have my number? Spider-Man obviously didn't understand what Tony meant. No. I mean, we will contact you. That is, other people will contact you. Okay. Tony explained to him. This time Spider-Man understood. Part of your team. Okay. That's enough. Tony hugged Spider-Man under the pretext of opening the door. Spider-Man also hugged him when he saw this. Tony said arrogantly, this is not a hug. I'm just opening the door for you. We are not that familiar yet. As he said that, he pushed open the car door. Spider-Man pursed his lips and looked at him awkwardly, then got out of the car. Spider-Man carried his luggage and watched Tony's car go away, excitedly saying, they will contact me. Then he ran back home quickly. Tony, I didn't expect you to cover it up like this. You obviously just want to hug him, but you have to find a lame excuse. Rod smiled and teased Tony, and he saw through Tony's poor performance at a glance. Oh come on. How can you say that? I just want to help him open the door, isn't it? Tony looked at Rodman dissatisfiedly, then put down the infrared sensor he was still adjusting, walked to the side, picked up the wine glass, and took a sip, to cover up the embarrassment of his secret being seen through. It seems that the Avengers are very famous in their universe, and the third generation Peter Parker obviously wants to join. Looking at the expectant Spider-Man, Tobey Spider tilted his head and said, yeah. Just look at the situation during their Civil War. So many superheroes gathered together, and they obviously had worked together many times, so they have a very good relationship. It's a pity that we still don't know why such a team would have disagreements, and why they fought like this. Uncle Ben sighed. With so many superheroes, the world was not more peaceful. 2 months later, Spider-Man stood in the tram wearing headphones, and took out his mobile phone to send a message to Happy. From the chat history, we can see that Spider-Man sent a lot of messages to Happy, but Happy didn't reply to any of them. Spider-Man came to the school. Flash drove his luxury car past and almost hit Spider-Man. He mocked him. What's wrong? Fuck Parker. Several students behind him laughed after hearing this. Spider-Man sighed helplessly and continued to walk inside. Good morning, everyone at Midtown Science and Technology High School. Betty Brent and another student Jason sat together and greeted the students. Students, don't forget to take your homecoming tickets. Jason first reminded them and then asked Betty, do you have a homecoming dance partner? Thank you. Jason, I already have a dance partner. Betty smiled and declined him. Spider came to the corridor and saw a student playing with a drone. Spider subconsciously avoided it. The teacher next to him saw it and walked up to catch it. As a result, he seemed to have cut his finger. Damn it. You. Go to my office now. He cursed. The student had no choice but to follow him. Spider didn't know what was happening behind him. He went straight to his locker, turned the combination lock, opened the door, and put his things in. At this time, a hand holding a toy stretched out from behind his shoulder, and Ned said in a hoarse voice, join me, and then we will build a brand new Lego Death Star model together. Spider turned his head and looked at Ned in surprise. What? The girl next to them heard what they said and complained, it's too bad. Spider turned his head and looked at her, first denying her statement. No way. This is great. Then asked Ned, how many pieces in total? 3,803 pieces. Ned looked at Spider with a smile on his face. Spider exclaimed sincerely, this is amazing. I know. Do you want to ride tonight? Ned looked at him expectantly. Hearing this, Spider-Man said regretfully, no, I can't do it tonight. I have Stark. Aha. Stark Group's internship project. You're always doing that internship. Ned complained a little dissatisfied. Spider-Man had to explain, yeah, that's it. Well, I hope I can get a formal job from this soon. That would be a great thing, right? He would say, you did a good job on your spreadsheet, Peter. Here's a gold coin for you. Spider-Man looked at Ned a little strangely. Ned blinked and said, I don't know what a real job is. That's it. Spider-Man affirmed his statement. The two laughed at the same time. Chapter 260. Wow. Lego blocks. Little Peter Parker looked at Ned in the sky with surprise. He didn't know Ned yet, but he still envied that he could play with those blocks in the future. It was exciting to hear about more than 3,000 blocks, and many boys in his class were also envious of it. Of course, they envied that little Peter Parker would become a big man like Spider-Man in the future and fight side by side with Tony Stark. The little girls were indifferent to blocks, and even wondered why these boys liked such a strange thing as blocks. Ned, who was still a little kid, looked at the person who seemed to be himself with surprise. Would he go to the same school as Spider-Man in the future, or would they be good friends? This made him extremely excited. Ned continued, I'll build the basic skeleton of the Death Star at my place first, and then I'll come to your house later. Because in most cases, the basic part is the most difficult to build. At this time, a beautiful black girl and other girls passed by in the corridor in front. Spider-Man couldn't help but stopped and stared at Liz Allen in a daze. Ned was still talking, but Spider-Man's attention was all on Liz, and he said perfunctorily, "Great." In the classroom, the teacher asked the students, "Okay, so how do we find the linear acceleration of points A and B?" Flash was the first to raise his hand, and the teacher called his name, the product of the sine of the angle and the gravity, divided by the mass. "No, Peter." The teacher shook his head and called the name of Spider-Man, who had been lying on the table. Spider-Man suddenly raised his head and looked at her. The teacher waved his hand and said, "Are you still listening to me?" Yeah. Listening." Spider-Man pressed the laptop that was playing the video that Tony had played before. Glancing at the picture drawn by the teacher, he got the answer in just 2 seconds. The mass cancels out, so just multiply the gravity by the sine value. Correct. Got it? Flesh. The fastest is not necessarily the best. If you are wrong. The teacher educated Flesh. The students laughed one after another, and Flesh turned to Spider-Man and threatened, "You're dead." But Spider-Man ignored him and turned his head to check the time. "It's Flesh again. Ha ha ha. Every school with Peter Parker must have a Flesh, right?" The second generation Gwen smiled, as if it was exactly what I expected. "It seems that he has the same problem as other Flashes, and likes to bully Peter Parker." George put down the newspaper and complained after hearing what his daughter said. "Parallel universes always have similarities, but they are not completely similar." Garfield Spider calmly drank a sip of milk, indicating that he was not surprised. "That girl, is it Mary Jane or Gwen from that universe?" Helen Stacy was more curious about who the girl that Spider-Man was looking at was. She was actually a black person, which made her feel a little surprised, because the girls that Peter Parker liked before were all white, which was a big difference in her opinion. "No way. That's me from another universe." Gwen couldn't accept how someone who looked like herself turned into a black person. "It may not be you. It may also be Mary Jane. Who knows? Let's see later." Garfield Spider comforted her. "Okay. I hope it won't be me." Gwen sighed, holding her chest. If it was really her, she felt that she would die. The camera turned, and Spider-Man had put on goggles and started a physics class. The teacher was speaking on the stage. "Today we are discussing the Danish physicist Niels Bohr. But believe me, this class is not boring at all." Spider-Man was listening absent-mindedly while secretly doing his own experiments. He poured some chemicals into a beaker, then took out a small stick and stirred it quickly. As a result, a lot of bubbles came out, and the small stick was covered with spider silk. Spider-Man saw that something was wrong and immediately closed his cabinet to prevent the teacher from discovering that he was secretly doing experiments. In the camera, another girl, MJ, was also studying hard. In the cafeteria, Liz hung up the poster for the homecoming day. Spider-Man propped up his chin and looked at him and asked Ned beside him, "Is Liz wearing a new top?" "No. We have seen this top before, but we have never seen her wear it with this skirt," Ned said lightly. At this time, Spider-Man realized that his behavior was not good, so he said, "Let's stop staring, otherwise we will be regarded as perverts." But another voice sounded, "It's too late, you bunch of losers." The two turned their heads and found that MJ was sitting opposite them on the other side. Hearing her words, Spider-Man helplessly straightened his waist and looked at the ceiling. "Then why did you sit with us?" Ned narrowed his eyes and asked a soul-searching question. "Because I don't have any friends." MJ looked at the two of them calmly. "Fortunately it's not me. Her name is Liz." Mary Jane and Gwen of the first and second generation universes breathed a sigh of relief, looking fortunate. It seems that a little Peter Parker likes this girl named Liz. Tony touched his chin and smiled. "Yeah. He still knows not to stare at girls all the time, although it's too late." Rod chuckled. Obviously, Spider-Man has a crush on the girl, but Liz may not have noticed him. It's like the first generation Mary Jane never noticed that Toby Spider liked her in school. The scene came to a classroom with the word decathlon written on it. Liz held a small card and said, "Let's move on to the next question. What is the heaviest naturally occurring element?" A boy immediately pressed the bell. "Hydrogen is the lightest." "That's not the question." "Okay." But he immediately realized that he had heard it wrong. Another black student answered, "Uranium." The girl next to him who was flipping through the book looked at him in surprise. Correct answer, thank you, Abraham. By the way, please turn to page 10. Liz looked at him happily. Chapter 261. Offstage, Spider-Man was talking to the teacher. Peter, this is a national competition. Can't you take a weekend off? I can't go to Washington. If Mr. Stark needs me, I have to make sure I'm here. Spider-Man explained to him. Flash, who was reading a book, mocked, you've never been in a room with Tony Stark. The female student on the stage heard their conversation and asked in confusion, wait, what's going on? A fat girl lying on the ground answered, Peter can't go to Washington. No. Why not? The girl and her classmates looked at Spider-Man in disbelief. Even Liz looked at him in confusion. Really? Quit before the national competition starts? He has already quit the military band and the robotics lab. MJ, who had been sitting on the side, suddenly said. Hearing this, many students turned their heads to look at her. MJ noticed their gazes and explained. I'm not obsessed with him, I'm just observant. Liz could only make a temporary decision. Flesh, you replace Peter. I don't know if I can go. I have to check the schedule first. I have a hot date with Black Widow soon. Flesh said shamelessly. Ding. Fake proposition. The black student Abraham pressed the bell to deny Flesh's words. Didn't I tell you not to press the bell for comedy effect? The teacher in the audience looked at him with dissatisfaction. It seems that you will be the dream lover of many men in the future. Barton looked at Flesh's dream talk to Natasha and joked to her. Natasha smiled softly when she heard it. She has long been the lover in the minds of many men. After all, she was already a household name when Iron Man 2 was released on the Sky screen. In addition, Natasha sacrificed her soul for a glimmer of hope, which made her famous all over the world and had many fans, only slightly less than Tony. But this made it almost impossible for Natasha to perform any infiltration missions. Although she could disguise herself, it was too troublesome. I think that girl likes the third generation Peter. What good observation is just her excuse. Uncle Ben of the second generation whispered to Aunt May. Aunt May nodded in agreement. Yeah, I think so too. As time passed, it soon came to the afternoon. As it got closer to 2:45, Spider-Man couldn't wait to leave school. The bell rang on time, and Spider-Man hurriedly opened the door and came to the gate. Seeing that there was no one around, he jumped over the gate and left the school. He came to a convenience store and greeted the boss warmly. Hello, Mr. Delmar. Hey, Mr. Parker. Number 5 meal. Right? He knew what Spider-Man wanted as soon as he saw him. Yeah. And pickles. Can you please squish them a little? Thanks. Spider-Man said to the chef. You have the final say, boss. The chef started to work. Delmar put his hands on the table and asked, how is your aunt? Yeah. She's fine. Spider-Man answered with his hands folded. She's a very hot Italian woman. Delmar teased Aunt May. Spider-Man licked his lips and replied, how is your daughter? Delmar's face suddenly turned ugly, and he stretched out his hand to Spider-Man and said, $10. It says $5. Because of what you said just now, $10. Delmar looked at Spider-Man unkindly. Spider-Man had to beg for mercy. Don't be like this. I was just joking. Just joking. Here are the dollars. He took out $5 and gave it to him. Then Spider-Man walked to the cat in the store and touched it. Hey, Murph. How are you doing recently, buddy? So, how is school? After the joke, Delmar asked about the situation at school. Ah, that's it. Pretty boring. There are other good things to do. Spider-Man shrugged. Delmar spread his hands to indicate his convenience store and warned him earnestly, stay in school, kid. Stay in school. Otherwise you will end up like me. Spider-Man looked at the convenience store and said, this is good. At this time, his sandwich was ready, and Delmar handed it to Spider-Man, the best sandwich in Queens. Ha ha ha. Boss, you care about my aunt, and I care about your daughter. Come on. Hurt each other. Ha ha ha. Otto was amused by Spider-Man's words. Rose covered her mouth and chuckled. It seems that this third generation Peter Parker is good at protecting his family. Auntie was cheesed and immediately fought back. He also knows how to give the other party a step down so as not to make everyone look bad. Hahaha, Rose. I like this kid. Otto is very satisfied with Spider-Man. Which Peter Parker do you dislike? You like them all. Rose rolled her eyes. Otto would say this every time. Hahaha, yeah. That's true. Otto nodded. Delmer touched his nose awkwardly. He was exposed for molesting a woman. Fortunately, he didn't molest in front of her, otherwise he would not be able to explain it when he got home. His aunt is really hot. I agree with that. Tony has seen a younger Aunt May. Although she is not as mature and charming as the one on the sky, she is also unique. You'd better not let Miss Pepper hear this, otherwise she might be angry. Banner reminded Tony lightly. Hey, don't tell her. Okay. Tony turned his head and looked at Rhodes. Rhodes was the only guy who might let the cat out of the bag. What are you talking about? I was deaf just now. I didn't hear anything. Rhodes spread his hands and looked at Tony innocently. Ah, good. Tony silently gave him a thumbs up and poured him a glass of wine. After leaving the convenience store, Spider-Man crossed the road and quickly came to an empty alley. He couldn't wait to throw his shoes aside. Then he took out his battle suit from his backpack, took off his outer pants and top, and put on the Spider battle suit. This battle suit worth millions was worn by him like a $10 pajamas. After putting on the mask, he put his things into the backpack and casually stuck it to the trash can with spider silk, and Spider-Man walked straight forward. Then he remembered that he hadn't finished his battle suit, so he patted his chest, and the battle suit that seemed to be a $10 street stall product immediately tightened and became a perfect fit for Spider-Man's body. Chapter 262. Spider-Man presses the button on his right hand, and as the function of the suit is activated, a scanning function like Tony's appears on his mask. He tilts his head twice, and the eyes on his mask will expand and contract with his movements, and then he jumps onto the roof. Let's get started, he said, and then he saw a bicycle thief, who was riding in a panic on the street full of people. Spider-Man swings on the spider silk, and comes in front of him to block his way. He pulls the spider silk to the other's chest. Can you help me hold this? Thank you, he said, and used his other hand to stick the spider silk and the spider silk to his chest. As Spider-Man loosened his hand, the car thief was immediately pulled up by the taut spider silk and hung in the air. Spider-Man caught the bicycle and shouted to the people around him, "Hey, whose bicycle is this? Doesn't anyone know?" At this time, a man happened to walk out of the clothing store, and Spider-Man asked, "Hey man, is this your bicycle?" But the man thought he was begging and said without raising his head, "I don't have any change." Spider-Man didn't care and asked others, "Does anyone bring a pen? Do you have a pen?" The next moment, a small card was placed on the front of the bicycle. "Is this your bicycle? If not, don't steal it. Spider-Man." The second generation Gwen turned his head and looked at Garfield Spider and laughed. "Ha ha ha. He was catching a car thief just like you did. Yeah. You still remember." Garfield Spider smiled awkwardly. When he just went out to find the murderer who killed Uncle Ben in the sky, he also played a trick on a car thief. "That's right, and then we chased you, and finally our police station was surrounded by your fans." George glanced at Garfield Spider lightly. "I didn't mean it." Garfield Spider scratched his head and looked at George embarrassedly. "Daddy, how long has it been?" Gwen looked at George dissatisfiedly. "Okay, I won't say it anymore." George had to sigh again, that girls can't be kept when they grow up. This elbow has turned to someone else's house. Little Spider left there with a spider silk and said hello to the passers-by who passed by him. Then Little Spider sat on the front of the tram and looked at his phone. The scene changed. Spider-Man was standing on a roof, and a street vendor shouted at him, "Hey, are you the Spider-Man on YouTube?" Hearing this, Spider-Man also shouted at him, "Call me Spider-Man." "Okay, Spider-Man. Do a somersault." Spider-Man did a backflip obediently. "Beautiful. Very good." Then Spider-Man continued to help others, and also helped the old lady to find the way, and then walked on a wire connected to the water tower. A man came to a car, took out a ruler, and prepared to pry the window, and the next second Spider-Man landed on the roof of the car. "Hey, buddy." Before he finished speaking, Spider-Man directly glued his face with spider silk and slammed him against the car. The car immediately sounded an alarm after being hit. You shouldn't steal cars. This is not good. Spider-Man said, gluing his hands to the car with spider silk. The man yelled at him angrily, "This is my car, idiot." At this time, many residents who were disturbed by the alarm came out to complain. "Hey, turn that thing off." The man shouted at a woman who stuck her head out, "Can you tell me this is my car?" Spider-Man realized that he seemed to have made a mistake. But before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by another resident. "Hey, I still have to work the night shift. Don't mess around, man." An old man ran out and shouted at Spider-Man, "That's not your car, that's his car. How should I know? He put that on the car window." Spider-Man tried his best to explain. "I can hear these damn alarms every day. Turn it off. Don't force me to go downstairs, you rubbish." Nearby residents complained in dissatisfaction, and a familiar old man could be seen among them. At this time, the female neighbor across the street shouted to the familiar old man, "Hey, Gary, how are you doing recently? Marjorie, how are you? How is your mother?" The two began to talk. "Look, that old man appears again. Gary, check where he is immediately." Jarvis. Tony was watching casually. Suddenly he found that the mysterious old man appeared again, and he immediately ordered Jarvis to find the location. At the same time, Nick Fury also immediately sent people to this location to look for traces of this old man, hoping to find some useful clues. Far away in Kamatage, Ancient One hesitated for a moment. She certainly knew that many people were looking for the traces of this mysterious old man, but she was not sure whether this would anger the other party. Because the other party was the greatest existence she had ever seen, Ancient One thought about it and decided to stop Nick Fury and his actions. Strange and Christine, who was still practicing magic, didn't even notice when Ancient One disappeared. She casually opened a portal, and with a sizzling sound, she appeared in S.H.I.E.L.D. Ancient One knew that there were a lot of Hydras here, but she didn't want to take care of these things. Just leave it to Tony and Captain America. She only needs to ensure that the Earth does not provoke the existence that even she can't stop. Ancient One's sudden appearance made Egghead feel like he was facing a great enemy. Ancient One smiled, and the two bald heads looked at each other. "The Supreme Sorcerer is here in person. What's the matter?" Nick Fury asked, after taking a deep breath. "Don't investigate that existence anymore. Even I can't see how great it is. The Earth cannot provoke such a powerful existence." "What do you mean?" Ancient One's words made Egghead frown. He never thought that this old man could make the Supreme Sorcerer give in. "Just as I said, I can't see him. He has surpassed the limits of what I can observe. The last object I couldn't see was the sky curtain." Ancient One explained lightly. Egghead's pupils shrank when he heard it. He didn't expect that Ancient One would put this old man on the same level as the sky curtain. How powerful the sky curtain is has been verified for such a long time. Nick Fury also knew through Carol and the Stru people that the whole universe was trying to study the sky curtain. But so far, no cosmic civilization has been able to have any impact on the sky curtain, and even cannot prevent life forms from seeing the sky curtain, no matter how close the place is. They have confirmed that the sky curtain can penetrate all known substances. The boiled Egghead rubbed his brows. He could only choose to trust Ancient One. Even if he was unwilling, he could not act on impulse. He reluctantly withdrew the people. Seeing this, Ancient One did not stay any longer. She did not like Nick Fury and left his office directly. Chapter 263. After Spider-Man resolved the misunderstanding, he continued to swing on the spider web in the city. He swung to the roof of a building and then fired the spider web to continue moving forward. But he fell directly to the ground. He screamed in pain, then got up and said, "I'm fine. I'm fine." How embarrassing. Peter. The female classmate next to him turned her head and smiled at little Peter Parker. Little Peter Parker blushed and lowered his head to be embarrassed to see people. He could fall down while swinging on the spider web. The first generation Gwen joked to Toby Spider, "I remember that you also hit the wall when you were swinging on the spider web at the beginning. He is the same as you." Toby Spider raised his hand helplessly and wanted to say something, but finally put it down without being able to refute. "Okay, I'm kidding. That was your first time, but it wasn't the first time for Peter Parker 3 to swing spider webs. He was more embarrassing. Gwen smiled, took his hand, comforted him, and kissed him on the face. As the sun set, Spider-Man sat on a house, eating fried dough sticks, while looking at the pedestrians and cars below, and dialed Happy's cell phone. Your voice has been transferred to Happy Hogan's voicemail. After a mechanical voice prompt, Spider-Man began to talk about his experience today. Hey, Happy. This is my report today. I stopped a bicycle thief, and couldn't find the owner, so I left a note. I helped a lost Dominican old lady. She was really nice, and bought me churros. I just think I can do more. Do you understand? I'm just curious when the next real mission will be. So, call me back. I'm Peter Parker. Spider sighed and regretted it. After hanging up the phone, why did I tell him about churros? He put his phone aside and started checking the transmitter on his suit. As he pressed a button, the spider silk storage of the transmitter flew out directly. Oh. Hey. Spider stood sideways on the wall in a hurry to catch it and put it back on the transmitter. The next second he saw a few people with bad intentions walking into the bank ATM not far away. As the gangsters followed their companions, they said, "I can't wait to see this thing." Spider-Child looked at their backs and muttered to himself, "Finally, we can do something big." One gangster easily cut the ATM with a high-tech weapon, sold to them by Vulture. This high-tech thing makes this thing so easy. He looked forward to where he would go after getting the money. "I told you it's worth the price." An accomplice who was watching behind him agreed. Seeing that the accomplice in front had already cut the ATM, he immediately waved his hand to signal another person to come forward. "Okay, go." This person held another high-tech weapon, the gravity gun, and as he pressed the switch, the entire front of the ATM was grabbed out of the air under the suction force. The last person immediately stepped forward and began to put the US dollars inside into his backpack. "Oh, nice. We can rob at least 5 more houses tonight." He was excited and filled with money. At this time, Spider-Man quietly pushed the door open and closed it. The gangster wearing the Iron Man mask who was responsible for looking out did not notice that someone came in behind him, still holding the shotgun and staring at the front. Spider-Man looked at their actions. Seeing that they had not discovered him yet, he held the railing and coughed twice. "Ahem. How are you? Have you forgotten your password?" Spider-Man's voice startled the gangsters, and they all turned their heads to look at him. It was only then that I realized that each of them was wearing a mask of an Avengers member, including Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk, and Thor. Puff. As early as when Tony saw the guy who was looking out wearing his mask, he couldn't help but spit out the wine. When Rhodes was ridiculing Tony, he didn't expect that these gangsters turned around and wore masks of Avengers members. Banner originally thought it was very funny, but he didn't expect the Hulk's mask to appear a few seconds later. Seeing this, Rod continued to fire. "Banner, look, you're here." Iron Man and the Hulk teamed up with Thor and Captain America to rob a bank. This will definitely make the headlines. Ha 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 ha. Banner looked down at his toes helplessly. He never expected that a robber would wear his mask to rob a bank. "Oh, this is the worst time the Avengers have been hacked." Barton covered his face and tried not to laugh. "Should I be thankful that there are only 4 of them? Fortunately, I'm not here." Natasha looked at him with a look of relief. Even the good old man Coulson couldn't hold back. Nick Fury looked at his agents who were all focused on the masks and had to remind them, "Hey, didn't you see what they were holding in their hands?" "Yeah, I saw it. It was probably made by Tomb's team." Captain America didn't laugh much and answered Egghead's words seriously. "But you can't use this to convict Tooms of a crime that he hasn't committed yet, not to mention that he suffered injustice first." Captain America's sense of justice prevented him from taking action before Tooms actually committed a crime. Of course, Egghead knew this. Although he had sent people to monitor Vulture, he could not act arbitrarily as Captain America said. As S.H.I.E.L.D. was gradually exposed to the world, they often began to be cautious in doing things. Spider-Man was also surprised and shouted, "Wow, you are the Avengers. What are you doing here?" The gangster who was on the lookout loaded the shotgun and aimed it at Spider-Man. Spider-Man instantly fired spider silk to stick to the gun, and then pulled it away with force. The shotgun hit the faces of the two people nearby heavily, making them stagger. Spider-Man casually blocked a man's elbow attack, then pushed his hand to knock the gangster behind him to the ground. Thor, Hulk, it's great to finally meet you. Then he jumped up and grabbed the ceiling, grabbed Thor's mask's clothes with his feet, and threw him hard against the wall behind him. I thought you would be more handsome in person. He was hanging upside down on the ceiling, and Iron Man's mask rushed up to give him a few punches, but he easily dodged them all. Iron Man, hey, why are you still robbing banks? You are a billionaire. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264. At this time, the Hulk mask climbed up again, picked up the high-tech weapon, and walked towards Spider-Man aggressively. Spider-Man found him, so he caught the fist of Iron Man mask and threw it at his face, and both of them were knocked to the ground at the same time. Captain America mask stood up, still holding the gravity gun in his hand, and directly sucked Spider-Man down from the ceiling and controlled him. Spider-Man encountered this situation for the first time. Hey, oh, this feels so weird. Then Captain America mask pushed hard, wanting Spider-Man to fall on the wall, but he didn't notice his accomplices. When Spider-Man flew over, he just knocked down the Hulk and Thor mask who had just stood up. Spider-Man, who fell to the ground, asked with a question mark on his forehead, "What is that thing? I'm beginning to think you're not the Avengers." Captain America mask continued to control Spider-Man with the gravity gun, swinging him up and down and constantly hitting the ceiling and the floor. Spider-Man naturally couldn't be manipulated by him like this, so he took the opportunity to grab the floor with his fingers to stabilize his body. Then he fired spider silk to stick to the table behind Captain America's mask and pulled it hard to knock Captain America's mask to the ground. Across the street corner, the convenience store owner Delma had already discovered something was wrong and was calling the police with his mobile phone. Faced with the operator's question, he hesitated and said, "Spider-Man and the Avengers are fighting in a bank on the corner." At this time, he could see that the banknotes were flying all over the place, and Spider-Man knocked several people to the ground in succession. "Okay, let's finish it quickly. We have to go to school tomorrow," Spider-Man shouted while kicking one of the people who picked up the shotgun away. The Iron Man mask picked up the gravity gun again, and Spider-Man would not give him another chance. He directly stuck the gravity gun to the glass with spider silk, and then jumped over and took off his mask. "So how did you bastards get this high tech?" Just as Spider-Man was talking, the Hulk mask on the side secretly picked up the laser cutting gun and adjusted its power to the maximum. As the sound of energy gathering sounded, Spider-Man panicked and said, "No, wait, He pulled the Iron Man mask away at the critical moment, avoiding his death. Because the power was too high, the Hulk couldn't catch it at all and was knocked to the ground by the recoil, and the laser gun in his hand was waving uncontrollably. The powerful laser directly cut off half of the bank roof and also swept the parked cars across the street and the convenience store in Delmar. Spider-Man turned around and looked at the messy convenience store and realized something. "Mr. Delmar." He quickly rushed across the street, jumped into the store, and started calling his name. "Hey, Mr. Delmar, are you there? Is anyone there? Hello?" Delmar luckily escaped and left the convenience store with the help of Spider-Man, leaning against the lamppost and coughing continuously. Spider-Man then remembered the robbers, turned his head, and looked at the bank, but the other party had already fled. Oh, come on. The people had already fled, and it was useless for him to worry about it, so he gave the cat Murph in his hand to Delmar and left there. "Oh my god. This is terrible. What is that?" Aunt May exclaimed. The power of the laser cutting gun was too amazing. It directly destroyed Delmar's convenience store from a distance of more than 10 meters. "Horrible power. Is this an alien weapon? It's hard to imagine." Uncle Ben also swallowed his saliva. Not only is the destructive power amazing, but the size is also very small. The first generation Carners looked at this scene and took a deep breath. This laser weapon that he had never seen before aroused his great interest. Dr. Otto was also attracted. Toby Spider couldn't wait to discuss with them the secrets of the two high-tech weapons, the possible application of technology, etc. Tony was also very interested in this. This looked similar to the disposable laser he used to deal with Ivan Vanko before, but the power in the hands of these gangsters was more powerful, the laser was thicker, and the range was longer. Their weapons gave Tony a little inspiration. If he improved the laser, he should be able to achieve the same effect. In the Avengers building, Happy is preparing to move, and the little robot Benben grabs a valuable antique vase. Happy walks in and sees it and immediately shouts, "No, no, put that down. Even if I sell you or me, I can't afford to pay for it." Then he gets a call from Spider-Man. "What's going on, Happy?" "I just experienced the craziest thing. A group of people robbed ATMs with high-tech weapons." Spider-Man chased after Happy while hurriedly telling him what had just happened. "Take a breath, okay? I don't have time to listen to your ATM robbery or the sweet note you left. I have to worry about moving day. Everything has to be moved out by next week." Happy didn't hear Spider-Man talking about high-tech weapons because he had to sign, and Spider-Man often said some nonsense things, and he was moving recently, so Happy didn't have much patience to listen. "Wait, are you moving? Who's moving?" Upon hearing this information, Spider-Man looked a little stunned. "Don't you watch the news? Tony sold the Avengers Tower. We are moving to a new facility upstate. I hope the cell phone signal there is much worse than here." At the end, Happy complained about Spider-Man calling him every day. "What should I do then?" Spider-Man seemed a little overwhelmed. "What are you talking about? What if Mr. Stark needs me or something, or, I don't know, if something big happens? Can I talk to Mr. Stark?" Spider-Man sat on a street lamp and talked about his worries. Happy heard the warning and said, "Stay away from all dangerous things. My responsibility is to make sure you are responsible." "Okay." Spider-Man jumped into the alley at the beginning. "I'm responsible. Oh, shit. I lost my backpack. That doesn't sound like a responsible move." Happy replied calmly as he walked into the elevator. "I'll call you." Happy smiled. "It's okay if you don't call." Then he hung up the phone. Spider-Man sighed as he looked at where the backpack was, put on his mask, and started to go home. Chapter 265. Wow. So many antiques. Is that the robot that saved Tony Stark before? Garfield Spider exclaimed as he looked at the things inside. Yeah. He is indeed a billionaire, with piles of precious antiques. Gwen couldn't help but nodded. Then she heard Garfield Spider talking about Benben, and she took a look and confirmed, "Yes, it's that robot. It's still there." Ha ha ha. Happy is so nervous. But does he really not care about the high-tech weapons that the third generation said? Isn't this too careless? Garfield Spider didn't quite understand this. No. Because he went to sign, and two people were talking in his ear at the same time, so Happy should have missed those words. Gwen thought about it carefully and refuted Garfield Spider's statement. He was in a very noisy environment and was distracted, so he ignored this matter. Garfield Spider recalled and felt that what she said made sense. When he came downstairs, Spider-Man couldn't walk up the stairs because he was wearing a spider suit, so he had to crawl in from the outside. He carefully opened the window of his room. When he saw Aunt May passing by, he immediately stopped. After Aunt May walked past, he continued to open the window and crawled in, and he didn't forget to close the window with his foot. Then he lay on the ceiling and took off his mask, threw it down casually, and then crept to the door and gently closed the door with spider silk. Then he slowly fell down, and after making sure that Aunt May didn't come over, he closed the door completely, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. Then he wanted to sit on the bed and turned around to find that Ned had been in his room staring at him in amazement. Ned opened his mouth wide while holding the Death Star building blocks, and the Death Star model slipped from his hand and fell to the ground and turned into pieces. The noise startled Aunt May outside, and she shouted, "What happened just now?" It's okay. It's okay." The little spider woke up from the shock and immediately turned his head and shouted to the outside. Ned stood up suddenly and looked at the little spider and said, "You are Spider-Man. The one on YouTube." The little spider immediately patted his chest, and the battle suit immediately became loose and fell to the ground and denied, I'm not. You were on the ceiling just now." Ned pointed his finger at it and said, "No, I'm not. Ned, what are you doing in my room?" The little spider looked at him with a little collapse. "May ask me to come in? You said we have to finish the Death Star." Ned immediately explained, "You can't just break into my room like this." Before the little spider finished speaking, he heard the sound of the door knob turning. He immediately ran to Ned and looked at the door. Aunt May pushed the door open and walked in, waving a towel and laughing. "That Turkish meatloaf recipe is a disaster. Let's go out for dinner. How about Thai food? Ned, do you want Thai food?" She let her hair down while talking. Hearing Aunt May's words, Ned said, "Yes." Spider-Man shouted, "No. He has something else to do. Something to do later." Aunt May nodded, "Okay." Before leaving, she pointed at Spider-Man. "Maybe put on some clothes." Ha 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 ha. So embarrassing. I thought he got home safely, but when I turned around, I found Ned behind him. At that moment, I could imagine how confused he was. "The second generation," Harry said with a smile to Felicia standing aside. Felicia nodded in agreement. This plot development was beyond her expectations. The identities of the first two generations of Spider-Man were well hidden. Those who knew his identity were either enemies or dead people, and at worst, they were all his girlfriends. She never thought that Spider-Man's identity would be discovered not long after the third generation. Harry was interested in how the story would develop next, and how it would be different from the Garfield spider in their universe. Spider-Man immediately obediently took a piece of clothing from the side. As soon as the door closed, Ned couldn't help asking, "Oh, doesn't she know?" "No one knows. Mr. Stark knows, because he made the suit. That's it," Spider-Man explained while putting on his clothes. Ned was even more shocked when he heard this. He looked at the Spider-Man suit on the ground. "The one Tony Stark made for you? Are you an Avenger?" Hearing his words, Spider-Man shamelessly admitted, "Yeah. Basically, right." "Oh. Got." Ned held the bed with an incredible look on his face. He never thought that his good friend would be an Avenger. Spider immediately stepped forward and whispered, "You can't tell anyone. You must keep it a secret." "Keep it a secret? Why?" Ned said he didn't understand why such a thing had to be kept secret. "You know what she is like. If she finds out that someone wants to kill me every night, she won't let me do this anymore." "Please, Ned," Spider explained to Ned very quickly. Okay. I'll be on the same front with you. I don't think I can keep it a secret. I've never encountered such a secret." Ned began to doubt his ability to keep secrets. "Ned, May can't know. I can't do this to her at this juncture. You know? I mean what she's been through. I beg you." Spider spoke earnestly. Seeing Spider-Man's look, Ned couldn't help but agree. "Okay. Swear. Can you?" "I swear." "Thank you. It's okay." After getting Ned's affirmative reply, Spider-Man held his head and walked to the side, muttering to himself, "I can't believe it's like this." Ned was extremely curious about this suit. "Can I try this suit? How does it work? Is it electromagnetic material? How do you shoot spider webs?" "No. I'll tell you tomorrow at school." Spider-Man pulled Ned to let him go back first. "Okay. Great. Wait. So, how did you do this and the internship project of Stark Group at the same time?" Ned looked at Spider-Man with a puzzled look on his face. Spider-Man was stunned for 2 seconds and pointed at the suit and explained, "This is the internship project of Stark Group. OHH. Ned suddenly realized. Spider-Man pushed him out of the room and said, "Just leave." Then he leaned against the door and covered his face with a headache. Chapter 266. He is just a kid, not serious enough. If he hid his backpack in a more secretive place, this wouldn't have happened. Tony sighed. Rod nodded and said, "I guess he thought that no one went to that alley, but he ignored the fact that there are always exceptions. Now he is with you, Tony. You have to take responsibility." "Yeah, that's right." Tony tilted his head and began to think about how to train little Peter Parker. Although his identity has been completely exposed now, there is no worry about this problem, but there are definitely other problems that need to be corrected. Tony doesn't want little Peter Parker to make the mistakes he made in the sky again. He began to think about whether to teach him more advanced knowledge and support him in addition to letting him go to school. After all, Howard didn't stop him from tinkering with machinery when he was a child. Although the relationship between father and son is not very good, Howard never discourages Tony's interests and hobbies, and later he has high hopes for him. Now Tony wants to extend it to Peter Parker. If someone really wants to inherit his mantle, Peter Parker is indeed a good candidate. In the restaurant, Aunt May looked at the little spider who had lost his appetite and asked, "What's the matter? I thought you liked minced meat salad rice." To Rabbi? Or not Rabbi enough? How many times do I have to say Rabbi? You are going to talk to me? You know I Rabbi you. Aunt May didn't know what Spider was worried about and thought that this restaurant was not to his taste and wanted to tell some jokes to make him happy. Spider picked up the rice with chopsticks and prevaricated, "I'm just too nervous recently. I'm exhausted from the internship. There are many things to do." Aunt May nodded. "Stark Group's internship project. I have to say, I don't like that Tony Stark very much. You are always distracted, and your mind is full of him." Aunt May thinks that Spider is too concerned about Tony Stark. At this time, a TV report attracted Spider-Man's attention. Local news: the highly acclaimed Del Mar sandwich in Queens was destroyed in an explosion earlier this evening. What did he ask you to do? You must remember to trust your instincts. Aunt May did not notice the TV behind her and continued her topic. Spider-Man focused all his attention on the TV. The host continued, "Before this, Spider-Man, a crime fighter in bright uniforms in Queens, just stopped an ATM robbery." Aunt May noticed Spider-Man's strangeness and turned her head to look back, following his gaze. "What?" In the process of stopping the robbery, Spider-Man caused a powerful airwave that swept across the shop across the street. The TV showed a video captured by the bank's surveillance camera. Fortunately, no one was injured in this accident. Aunt May turned to Spider-Man and warned him solemnly, "If you see something like this happen, you have to turn around and run." Aunt May, who has seen too many dangers, doesn't want her nephew to take risks at all, not to mention that Spider-Man is just an ordinary person in her eyes. After hearing Aunt May's words, Spider-Man frowned and praised repeatedly, Yeah, definitely." Aunt May lamented that the accident was too close to them. "It's just 6 blocks away from us." To some extent, she is right. Ordinary people should stay as far away as possible when encountering such things. The second generation Aunt May said to Uncle Ben while washing clothes, "Something always has to be done by someone," just like what the third generation Peter Parker said. "If you don't do it, if something goes wrong, the responsibility is on you." Uncle Ben didn't quite agree with Aunt May's statement. He firmly believed that, if you have the ability to help others, if you don't help, the responsibility will be on you. If he has problems, why not leave it to professionals? You are just an ordinary person. If you do it, and then you die, I will be left alone. Aunt May put down the half-washed clothes in her hand, looked at Uncle Ben and refuted him. Uncle Ben was speechless, because what she said was indeed the truth. He helped the robbed clerk in the sky, and then he died. He didn't want to talk about this topic with Aunt May anymore. There are many timid and cowardly people in the world, which is nothing, but if all of them are like this, then the world is really hopeless. This is a question of self-interest and altruism. It is difficult to determine who is right and who is wrong in this question. Different positions will lead to different answers. At the same time, Aunt May's words also cause many online comments people's discussion. There is no absolute conclusion about such things. This is when the preciousness of those heroes is reflected. Spider-Girl doesn't want to talk about whether to be brave or not, so he changes the subject and says, "I need a new backpack." Hearing this, Aunt May frowned and put her finger to her ear to signal Spider-Girl to say it again. "What? I need a new backpack." Spider-Girl had to bite the bullet and say it again. That's the 5th one. While talking, the waiter brought a new dish, glutinous rice pudding. Aunt May was stunned and looked at him. "We didn't order this. This is a gift from our restaurant." The waiter looked at Aunt May with a smile on his face. "Oh, thanks. He is so nice." Aunt May thanked him first and then said something to Spider-Girl after he left. Spider-Girl waved a chopstick and revealed, "I think he's Rabbi you." Hearing this, Aunt May opened her mouth wide and looked at Spider-Girl. "It looks like I'm still very attractive." Aunt May smiled lightly, covering her mouth. As for what she said in the sky, she didn't think there was anything wrong. As an ordinary person in the sky, she didn't want her family to be in danger. This was a very simple emotion, which was understandable. But in reality, as the family of the superhero Spider-Man, Aunt May can do now is to support him, encourage him, and let him have no worries. Fortunately, with the protection of Tony Stark, there will be no problem for the growth of little Peter Parker. Now almost no one in the world dares to do anything to Tony and his family. "She doesn't like me." Tony was a little bit unbelievable that there would be a woman who didn't like him. This was really incredible. Ha 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 ha. Playboys also have their moments of frustration. Rod teased him with a glass of wine. "It seems that I'm still not enough to attract women's attention." Tony laughed at himself without being surprised. Chapter 267. At school, Ned and Spider-Man are walking together. "You were bitten by a spider? Can you let it bite me? A bite shouldn't hurt, right? Anyway, even if it hurts, I'll let it bite me. Maybe. How much does it hurt?" Ned kept chattering beside Spider-Man. Spider-Man, holding a book, looked at him helplessly. "That spider is dead, Ned." Hearing this, Ned pouted with a TSK. Then they saw the scene that was destroyed last night. "Oh my god. You were here?" Ned looked around the unrecognizable accident scene. "Yeah. You could have died." Ned realized how dangerous Spider-Man had been last night. Then he suddenly asked another question. "Do you lay eggs?" Spider-Man frowned at him. "What the hell? Lay your sister." When he came to school, Ned would ask him, whenever he had the chance, "Can you spit venom? Can you summon an army of spiders?" Spider-Man shook his head helplessly. No, Ned." In class, the teacher was explaining the relevant content of the Sokovia Accords, and Ned leaned over to Spider-Man's ear. "How far can your web shoot?" Ned kept asking all kinds of strange questions like a curious baby. "I don't know." "Shut up." Spider-Man glared at him. "If I were you, I would stand on the roof and shoot as far as I could." "Shut up, Ned." Spider-Man couldn't help it, and his voice was a little louder. The female students in the front row frowned and turned their heads to look at them. "Ha ha ha. I found that Ned is also a problem baby. He has too many questions. Ha ha. The third generation Peter Parker is almost collapsed by his questions." Otto smiled with a gloating look on his face. Toby Spider, who came to learn knowledge from him today, smiled softly. He was very glad that Harry didn't ask so many questions after knowing that he was Spider-Man. He didn't even ask him how he became Spider-Man, but helped him find a house to take shelter as soon as possible. After Toby Spider told them, Harry didn't tell anyone. It was not until the matter was exposed by Cheyenne Moo that the Genetic Research Center of Columbia University confirmed this. But because of Cheyenne Moo's words and the miserable state of the second generation Harry after being poisoned, everyone was discouraged, and finally nothing happened. In the gymnasium, the physical education teacher played a video for everyone. Captain America's Health Challenge. "Hi, I'm Captain America. Whether in the classroom or on the battlefield." Captain America said the lines to the camera with a serious face. Ned whispered, "Do you know him too?" But he didn't notice that MJ was sitting behind them reading a book. "Yeah, we've met. I stole his shield." Hearing this, Ned opened his mouth wide at first, and then widened his eyes, and looked at Spider-Man in disbelief after hearing the next sentence. "Today, my good friend, your physical education teacher, will organize the Captain America Health Challenge." Captain America saluted the camera and the video ended. "Thank you, Captain. I'm sure he's a war criminal now, but I still have to show this video. The state requires it. Let's get started." The teacher blew a whistle. Captain America covered his face. He didn't expect that after decades, he still had to shoot these videos. Ha 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 ha. This reminds me of the fact that Captain performed on stage to raise military pay for the army decades ago. Natasha couldn't help but tease Captain America with a smile on her face. Captain America looked at Natasha helplessly. "Hey, don't mention that, okay? Okay, okay." No problem. I won't say it anymore. Natasha waved her hand to indicate that it was okay. Wanda and Pietro also looked at Captain America with a smile on their faces. They recognized Captain America's justice. Compared with Tony Stark, they were more willing to be with Captain America. Captain America originally had his own apartment, but considering the safety of Wanda and Pietro, he chose to move to the house provided by Tony for them, located in Stark Tower. According to Tony, he was given some opportunities to atone for his sins. Wanda and the others knew that Tony sincerely admitted his mistakes, so they agreed. Tony was going to build a new building like the Avengers building in the Skydome as their headquarters, but before that, he first found a place to separate the Avengers from S.H.I.E.L.D. Because Tony felt that he couldn't always use S.H.I.E.L.D's place, the Avengers should not be a subordinate of S.H.I.E.L.D. They want to operate independently and cooperate with S.H.I.E.L.D. So they chose Stark Tower as the temporary headquarters of the Avengers. Do the Avengers have to pay taxes? What does the Hulk smell like? I guess he smells good. Ned kept asking questions while helping Spider-Man stretch his legs. Shut up. Spider-Man looked at him speechlessly. Is Captain America cool? Or is he like a grumpy old man? Ned continued to ask relentlessly. Ned, hush. Okay. Hey. Can I be the person on your chair? Ned looked at Spider-Man expectantly. What? Spider-Man said in surprise while doing sit-ups. Ned explained. You know, it's a person wearing headphones and telling another person where to go. It's like, let's say you're trapped in a burning building. I can tell you where to go. Because there will be many screens around me, I can sit in a swivel chair and switch constantly because I'm the person in your chair. Ned told what he saw on TV, looking forward to being Spider-Man's backup. Ned, I don't need a person in a chair. Spider-Man rejected his proposal without hesitation. The physical education teacher passed by and saw Spider-Man's actions and praised. Well done, Parker. Good idea, little guy, but can you do it? Tony has also seen those movies and TV shows, but he doesn't think that human power can be stronger than artificial intelligence that can quickly search the internet at any time, so he doesn't care about this kind of thing. With Jarvis, Tony has any questions, Jarvis can easily and quickly give answers and will not give wrong answers like humans. Later, Tony also plans to provide this artificial intelligence assistance to all Avengers to facilitate their actions and avoid mistakes. Chapter 268. Spider-Man is still doing sit-ups while Liz and Betty are sitting in the back. Betty is dreaming and says, as for me, I'll sleep with Thor, marry Iron Man, and kill the Hulk. Another male classmate asked, well, what about Spider-Man? Spider-Man immediately stood up and looked back when someone mentioned his name. No need to add that, just call him Spider-Man. Have you seen the bank surveillance video on YouTube? He fought off 4 people by himself. Liz is telling her classmates about her admiration for Spider-Man. Betty looks like she's seen through me. Oh my god. She has a crush on Spider-Man. That's impossible. A male classmate looked at Betty in disbelief. Liz admitted it readily, a little bit. Betty couldn't accept it. Ugh. Disgusting. He might be 30 years old. You don't even know what he looks like. What if he's seriously burned? The male classmate next to her maliciously guessed what Spider-Man looked like. Then I don't care. What I love is his heart. Liz looked at him and said seriously. At this time, Ned suddenly shouted loudly, Peter knows Spider-Man. Spider-Man immediately opened his mouth and looked at Ned. His heart collapsed. The whole audience was attracted by this sentence. Everyone fell silent and looked at Spider-Man. Spider-Man immediately wanted to explain. No, I don't know him. I mean, but Ned had already said it, so he couldn't be scared. So Ned spoke again. They are friends. Flash jumped down from the rope and taunted. Yeah. Just like friends like Coach Wilson and Captain America. His words made everyone in the audience laugh. Facing Flash's taunting, Spider-Man had to bite the bullet and said, I have met him, yeah, a few times. But, I met him through the internship program of Stark Group. I shouldn't have mentioned this. Spider-Man turned his head and looked at Ned with gritted teeth, glaring at him fiercely. Ned also realized that he had made a mistake and didn't dare to speak. Flash suggested, well, great. Hey, If you ask me, maybe you can invite him to Liz's party. Right. Yeah. I invited some people tonight. You're welcome to come. Liz glanced at Spider-Man embarrassedly. You're going to have a party? Spider-Man was a little surprised that he didn't know about this. Yeah. It will definitely be awesome. You must invite your personal friend Spider-Man. Flesh pointed at Spider-Man and teased him. Spider-Man was about to say something, but Liz came to his rescue. It's okay. I know Peter is so busy that he definitely doesn't have time to go to the party. So, Flesh interrupted her and provoked Spider-Man. Come on. You will come. Right, Parker? As the bell rang, everyone in the gymnasium left one after another. Spider-Man collapsed and clenched his fists and turned to look at Ned. What are you doing? Help you. Did you hear what she said? Liz has a crush on you. Spider-Man looked at Ned with sudden realization at this time. Brother, you are an Avenger. If anyone can pick up a senior girl, it must be you. After saying that, Spider-Man was left there thinking. Ha ha ha. I don't know whether to say Ned is a bad teammate or a great assist. The second generation Gwen covered her mouth and laughed. The third generation definitely doesn't want his identity to be exposed, but Ned's doing this will undoubtedly quickly show his extraordinariness. Let him enter Liz's sight. Garfield Spider rationally analyzed the pros and cons of this matter. As long as Spider-Man plays a role to prove that he really called Spider-Man, his status in the school will change dramatically. But he himself will definitely not take the initiative to do this. This is not in line with his character. Ned helped him push it. Is this really good, little Peter Parker, using your superhero identity to satisfy your own selfish desires? The first generation Uncle Ben said to himself worriedly. He was worried that Spider-Man would indulge in the pleasure of showing off in front of others and couldn't extricate himself. At night, Aunt May drove Spider-Man and Ned to Liz's house. Aunt May looked at the lively party with a little envy and said, a suburban party. Oh, I still remember it. I was a little jealous back then. Tonight is definitely worth remembering. Oh my god. Ned laughed happily. Aunt May turned her head and looked at him. Ned, some people look good with hats, but the hat you wear looks good with you. That's right. Wearing it makes you feel confident. Spider-Man looked at the party scene and said timidly, this is a mistake. Let's go home. Aunt May looked at him dissatisfiedly. Oh, Peter. I know. It's hard to adapt to all this. Your body is going through a lot of changes, and you are blooming now. Then she turned her head and said to Ned, he's been under a lot of pressure recently. Ned said, going to a party can effectively relieve stress. We should go to the party. Yeah. Go. I'm getting off the car. Spider-Man had to make up his mind and got off the car. Aunt May shouted, Peter, it's fun. Okay. I will. Spider-Man nodded. Ned waved goodbye to her. Bye, May. The two walked inside together. Ned patted Spider-Man on the back and asked, brother, did you bring your uniform? Spider-Man pulled his sleeve to show him the Spider-Man suit inside. Tonight will definitely change your life. Ned said excitedly, I feel like they will mess things up, just like the first generation of Peter Parker. Plans can never keep up with changes. Rod frowned slightly at Ned and Spider-Man. He always had a bad feeling. Will things really go so smoothly? Tony also thought of what Peter Parker had experienced in the past. History is always surprisingly similar. Even the second generation of Peter Parker was called a late dinner man. Not to mention the third generation of Spider-Man. If there is 1 and 2, there will probably be 3. Hope everything goes well for them. We can only watch, right? Banner said with a sigh. Chapter 269. They pushed the door open and walked in. It was the first time for both of them to come to such an occasion. Flesh was playing DJ music. Ned came up with an idea and said, okay, we'll let Spider-Man swing in later. You can say that you two are best friends, and then I'll give him a fist bump or a brotherly half hug. MJ on the side said indifferently, I can't believe you two actually came to this crappy party, but you're here too. Ned looked at her and retorted. MJ squinted his eyes and took a bite of bread. Am I really here? At this time, Liz came out and saw Spider-Man and the others. Oh my gosh. Hi. The hat is cool, Ned. The two greeted Liz, and Liz smiled and said, I'm glad you two can come. There are pizza and drinks. Just eat something. Spider-Man praised. "The party is great. Thank you." Just as they were talking, there was a sound of something breaking not far away, and Liz frowned and looked over there. If something breaks, my parents will kill me. I have to go check it out. It's fun." She apologized to them and walked over there. "Bye bye." After she left, Ned looked at Spider-Man with a look of disappointment. "Dude, what are you doing? She's here. Hurry up and change into your spider uniform." But Spider-Man was still very resistant. No. I can't do it. Spider-Man is not a trick performed at a party. "Okay. I'll be myself tonight." To be fair, Spider-Man didn't want to tarnish the name of Spider-Man at all. He didn't want to see a report about Spider-Man appearing at a party in tomorrow's newspaper. Ned looked at Spider-Man helplessly. "Peter, no one wants to see you being yourself." But Spider-Man still didn't want to do this. But his figure was seen by Flash, so he immediately picked up the microphone. "Puzzle Parker, how are you?" His voice made everyone look at Spider-Man. "Where is your good friend Spider-Man?" "Let me guess, he is in Canada with your imaginary girlfriend?" Everyone laughed at Spider-Man, and Flash continued, "That's not Spider-Man, that's just Ned wearing a red shirt." Flash's ridicule successfully aroused Spider-Man's desire to perform. He was determined to put on his battle suit to prove to everyone present that Peter Parker really knew Spider-Man. He took off his coat and shirt on the roof while practicing the words he would use later. "Hi. How are you? I'm Spider-Man. I just came by to say hello to my buddy Peter." "Oh. Ned, how are you? Where is Peter? He must be around." He sighed as he said this, and didn't know how things turned out like this. Looking at the crowd attending the party below, he couldn't help but close his eyes and cover his forehead. "God, this is so stupid. What am I doing?" Looking at Ned constantly looking around and waiting for his figure below, Spider-Man suddenly found a burst of energy in the distance ahead. Spider-Man couldn't help but stand up and look over there. What the hell? Spider-Man ran to that place without hesitation, put on the hood, and left Liz's house. Damn it. I knew something would happen. This time, the name Peter Parker will probably be ruined in their school circle. Tony looked at the sky with a little helplessness. The difference in personality made him unable to understand what Spider-Man was thinking about. After all, Tony was someone who could wear the Mark armor to attend the dance. Why doesn't he go down and show his face before leaving? He has already made a big promise, but he didn't do it. This will ruin his reputation. Rhodes didn't quite understand what Spider-Man was thinking. He only needed to appear in the eyes of everyone, even for only a second, without saying a word, and leave directly, and Peter Parker's identity would not be ridiculed. Now that he has left, according to the style of the previous 2 and 3 generations of Flash, he will definitely make the name Peter Parker become something that his classmates despise. Flash may even make a big fuss about it, so that Spider-Man can no longer gain a foothold in school without exposing his identity and proving himself. But on the other hand, it also shows that he doesn't really care how he will be treated. He cares more about what happened in the distance, whether it will be another robbery. After all, from what Spider-Man said before, from a theoretical point of view, he is very kind and does not want to flatter himself with such things. He is originally resistant to it. Banner analyzed Spider-Man's thoughts, and Tony and Rhodes felt that he had some truth. Spider-Man swung the spider silk and quickly passed several houses. After jumping off a roof, Spider-Man fired the spider silk again without hesitation, but there was nothing around the lawn that could give him leverage. So the spider silk flew a long distance into the sky and then fell down. Spider-Man was stunned for a second before reacting, so he started running wildly and complained about his ability. Damn weak. On the other side, Vulture subordinate Green fired another round with a weapon, directly smashing a car into scrap metal. Who? Ha 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 ha. This is a modified arm of an Ultron minion, recovered from Sokovia. Take it and try it. He introduced the weapon in his hand and then handed it to a black bar next to him. The black man complained speechlessly, "Dude, I want something low-key. Why do you always sell me these high-end stuff?" While the two were talking, Spider-Man had quietly come to a tree near them, lying on it and observing their actions. When Green heard what the other party said, he could only comfort him. Okay, I have what you want. Okay, I have a lot of good stuff here. Wait a moment. He put the gun back into the van, and you can see that there are a lot of things inside. Okay. I have black hole grenades, Chitauri railguns. At this time, Herman Schultz, shocked, came over. You dare to try the gun outside now, hurry up. Then he looked at the black Bayer and Avis. Listen, the times are different now, and we are the only ones selling these high-tech weapons. Chapter 270. Is it so embarrassing? I can only run. The first generation. Gwen laughed at this scene. Toby Spider scratched his head. Yeah. If there is nothing to use the spider silk, it can't swing, so I can only run with my feet. Then if I fight you in an open space, you won't be at a disadvantage? Yes. It is indeed a disadvantage. Toby Spider must admit this. Without spider silk, Spider-Man's combat power is at least weakened by half. Wow. Black hole grenade. Chitauri railgun? It sounds very impressive. Rhodes narrowed his eyes and looked at Green's introduction. Yeah. It's really powerful. Banner nodded, and then he suddenly found that Tony didn't say anything and looked at him a little puzzled. Tony, don't you want to say anything? Tony rubbed his chin and looked up at Banner after hearing what he said. Do you remember what I said before? That I wanted to build a new global defense system? Yeah, I remember. What's wrong? Banner looked at Tony a little puzzled. This was a topic they had discussed before, but they hadn't had time to implement it. Here comes the problem. I was planning to name the artificial intelligence of this defense system Ultron. Sounds familiar, right? That guy just mentioned this name. Tony pouted at the sky, and Banner's face changed slightly. He said it was recovered from Sokovia. Look at this. Tony played back a video of the sky, which the teacher mentioned in Spider-Man's class. Sokovia Accords. Did you hear that? Do you remember the reason for our civil war? Captain said that my signing had split the Avengers. I've been wondering what I signed that could cause such a big consequence. Unfortunately, there is no answer. Now it seems that it may be related to the Sokovia Accords. After listening to Tony's analysis, Banner nodded and added, yes, that guy said that it was modified from the arm of Ultron's minions, which means that Ultron has an army. Then something must have happened in Sokovia, and then it led to the birth of this agreement. Maybe it was because there was a problem with the Ultron you created, or something else happened, resulting in countless deaths and injuries? Tony shrugged. Who knows? We don't have too many clues. We can only rely on guesses. But in short, I'm on the opposite side of the captain. He refused to sign, so he became a war criminal. If there is a problem with the Ultron you created in the future, shouldn't you be held accountable, Tony? Rhodes was a little puzzled. Tony spread his hands and looked at him and said, don't ask me, I don't know either. But let's put Ultron on hold for now. We can't take risks. What about the black hole grenade and the Chitauri railgun? I don't think anyone on Earth can invent such weapons in a few years. And the prefix name Chitauri, do you want to check it? No problem, I'll check it right away. Tony nodded after hearing Banner's words and immediately arranged for Jarvis to search on the internet. At the same time, Captain Marvel Carol called Nick Fury and told him that she had heard the name Chitauri in the universe. At the same time, Thanos finally confirmed many of his own guesses, looking at the little spider in the sky with a grin, while Gamora looked at the sky with an inexplicable expression, not knowing what she was thinking. Spider-Man looks at their conversation and suddenly realizes, oh, the guys who robbed the ATM must have bought stuff from here. Aaron Davis said to Herman, I just want to beat them, not beat them to the point of traveling through time. Green ignored him and continued to introduce, I also have an anti-gravity climber. Aaron Davis asked in confusion, climber? At this time, Spider-Man's phone suddenly rang, and the sudden ringing of the phone made the people who were trading look confused. Okay, what the hell is that? Green looked back at the two of them, and Spider-Man took out his phone, which showed that Ned was calling. Herman reacted and took out his gun and pointed it at Aaron Davis. Are you setting a trap for us? Seeing this, he immediately raised his hand and explained repeatedly, hey, take it easy, man. Spider-Child hung up the phone and jumped down from the tree, shouting to Herman, hey, come on. If you want to shoot, shoot at me. Herman looked at Spider-Child and said calmly, then I'll shoot you. He turned the gun and pointed it at him, but before he could shoot, Spider-Child instantly shot Spider-Silk and took away his gun. Then Spider-Child rushed towards them quickly. Aaron Davis immediately ran to his car when he saw the situation was not good. Green immediately installed the mechanical fist, turned around and charged a punch to hit Spider-Man. Spider-Man was hit by this punch and flew back more than 10 meters. He hit the tree and lay on the ground motionless. Green couldn't help laughing when he saw this. Wow. Such a strong force. The third generation Peter Parker was directly hit and flew out. Will he be okay? Aunt May couldn't help but stand up and looked at the sky worriedly. No. He won't get into trouble so easily. After all, he is Spider-Man. Even if he is not as good as me, he can't fall down all of a sudden. Toby Spider comforted the worried Aunt May. But the enemy is obviously also very unusual. Their weapons sound very powerful. Once they are hit, I'm afraid there will be no bones left. Uncle Ben was also a little worried. Compared with their world, the world of the third generation is obviously much more dangerous. Such high-tech weapons can actually be sold. Toby Spider nodded, but he believed that the third generation could deal with the opponent. This is the confidence of Spider-Man in another self. Herman started the car, and Green immediately jumped on it. Spider-Man came to his senses and said in surprise, "What's going on?" Then he found that the other side was trying to escape, so he fired Spider Silk to stick to the back door of the car. As the car started, Spider-Man was dragged away. Herman drifted with his tail, and Spider-Man only had time to scream, "What the hell?" And then he crashed directly into a trash can on the side of the road. Then he was dragged on the ground again, and Spider-Man used his other hand to shoot Spider Silk to stick to the van to prevent himself from being thrown off. Herman said in the car, "We have to call him." Hearing this, Green immediately resisted. No. As he said that, he picked up a weapon and activated it. Spider-Man was dragged on the ground and kept rolling. After finally adjusting his posture, Green fired a laser. The car door was directly blown away, and Spider-Man's Spider Silk was directly gone. He lowered his head urgently to avoid the car door that was smashing towards him. Herman asked, "Did you open fire again? I want to call him." Then he picked up the phone and called Vulture. Green shouted, "Shut up." In Vulture's secret base, Mason was making new weapons. His phone rang. He took a look and answered, "This is Tom's call." Vulture was working with a flamethrower. Mason came over and shouted, "Boss, if you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 271. At this time, Spider-Man was still being dragged on the ground, feeling the heat on his butt, and he couldn't help shouting, "Oh, my butt." Green aimed at Spider-Man and fired another laser. Spider-Man quickly jumped up with his legs and avoided it, but this also made him lie prone on the ground and be dragged. Green aimed again and wanted to shoot, but because Herman suddenly made a sharp turn, caused him to lose balance, the laser in his hand pierced the side of the van, and the recoil made him lose his grip on the gun, and he fell out and fell on the grass. It's really thrilling. The third generation of Peter Parker. George took a sip of coffee. Even he didn't expect that the third generation of Spider-Man would have to face such a powerful weapon. Compared with the laser gun in Green's hand, the thermal weapons commonly used by their police are simply hard to describe. Even the weapons of the special police can hardly penetrate some high-strength metal objects. For example, Alexa's rhino armor. Since the Sky Curtain ended the broadcast of the Garfield Spider story, many people swore that Garfield Spider died at Alexa's hands. The New York police asked Osborne Industries to strengthen the management of the equipment they manufactured and destroy some weapons that were too dangerous, and Harry agreed to all of them. He thought that, as long as these things did not flow into the hands of those guys with bad intentions, maybe Garfield Spider would not be in trouble, because in his heart, he was also afraid that Garfield Spider really died at Alexa's hands. Spider followed the back of the car, and every turn would cause him to hit something on the roadside. Herman discovered this, so he began to turn left and right, causing Spider to constantly hit the trash can, and finally hit a stone lampstand on the road. Although Spider was not hurt by this blow, the spider silk in his hand was broken. Herman saw from the rearview mirror that Spider-Man was still following behind without much impact. Spider-Man shot out a thread of spider silk that stuck to the door, but the door had already been overwhelmed. He was directly pulled down by Spider-Man, and Spider-Man helplessly spread his hands. Great. I think I have to take a shortcut. Then he ran to the back garden to the house without hesitation, where two people were playing table tennis. Spider-Man flashed by and praised, "Hello, comrades, you play well, play well." Then he met their dog. The puppy barked at him, and Spider-Man immediately opened his hands and shouted, "Hey, hey, dog." The puppy was about to pounce on him, but Spider-Man suddenly had an idea and shot out a thread of spider silk to grab a stone on the ground in his hand. "Sorry, I don't have time to play with you. This is for you. Go pick it up." He threw the stone aside, and the puppy immediately chased it. Spider-Man took the opportunity to launch a spider silk and swing away. When he came near the house, Spider-Man finally had a leverage point to swing on the spider silk. He couldn't help but shout, "Wow, that's more like it." When he swung to a house, the spider silk stuck to a tree house, and the whole tree house was pulled down from the tree. Spider-Man miscalculated and fell into a small house. After a few seconds of ding-dong and clanging, Spider-Man slapped the door of the small house and rushed into their house, breaking through a wooden wall. Because the landing speed was too fast, Spider-Man couldn't control himself and broke through the railing of another house. A man who was cooking looked at Spider-Man in a daze. Spider waved his hand and said hello to him. "It smells really good." Then he shot another spider silk and swung away. Another family was having a party, and Spider flew over swinging on the spider silk. Because the height was too low, the whole person splashed in the swimming pool. A lot of water drenched the bikini beauties who were talking nearby, causing them to scream. Spider also smashed a corner of the chimney and fell in front of a tent. The two little girls in the tent were startled by him. Spider screamed "Oh," and then saw them. So he blinked at them and said, "Oh, hey, hello, ah." The little girls screamed in fear at the moving mask and flipped the tent in panic to escape. Their screams also scared Spider, and he subconsciously supported himself with his hands and backed away, trying to stop them from screaming. No. Ha 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 ha. Peter Parker, a master of house wrecking. Ha. Rod laughed as he watched Spider-Man rampage through other people's homes. Tony covered his face, feeling a little embarrassed. Spider-Man can't use his mobility in this flat environment. Even if he uses the tree for leverage, he will be affected by the branches and unable to maintain balance, causing him to fall to the ground easily. I should add some flying functions to his equipment, preferably one that won't affect him. Tony thought about how to upgrade Spider-Man's equipment in the future. Ned continued to call Spider-Man, but the other end of the phone only heard a voice broadcast. "This is Peter. Please leave a message." "Peter, where are you? The hat doesn't work. This is not cool." At the same time, Spider-Man finally caught up with Herman's van. He missed and continued to chase. "I'm going to catch you." He quickly jumped onto the roof of a building. Herman and his friends were driving on the road, and Spider-Man followed closely on the roof behind them. Spider-Chan ran while talking to himself. "You think you can hide from me, right? I can catch you if I want to." As Herman and the others turned, Spider-Chan finally got the chance to jump down. Surprise. But before he finished speaking, he was grabbed by the vulture. What the hell? The vulture grabbed Spider-Chan and flew higher and higher. Spider-Chan was caught by his legs and couldn't get rid of it at all. The spider pattern on his chest sensed the crisis and began to flash red. The next second, the parachute popped out from it. The huge wind force drove Spider-Chan to successfully get rid of the vulture's restraints, but it also put him in a new crisis. He crashed directly into the parachute. There was no place to get leverage inside. Spider-Chan struggled in panic and fell from the night sky at high speed. Fortunately, there was a lake right below him. Spider-Chan fell directly into the lake, causing waves of water, but his crisis was still not over. The parachute stuck to his body after it hit the water. Spider-Man struggled hard, but couldn't get the parachute off. Chapter 272. Oh my god. He won't drown, will he? A woman who stopped to watch was horrified as Spider-Man struggled in the lake. Damn, That parachute is really in the way. Many people on the side couldn't help but curse. You can't say that. Tony Stark definitely doesn't want Rod's tragedy to happen again. But he didn't expect that he would be self-defeating. Several more rational people refuted their views. Rod was seriously injured, and his life or death was unknown. Because the sky did not release Rod's situation, no one knew whether Rod could survive. Therefore, Tony Stark hoped that Spider-Man would not be killed by the fall, but he didn't expect that this would put Spider-Man in greater trouble. Aunt May also looked at her nephew with a worried look on her face, praying that he would not get into trouble. Audiences around the world also watched Spider-Man sinking into the water nervously, hoping that he could get rid of the parachute and float to the surface as soon as possible. Fuck. Tony couldn't help but curse, cursing his future self. If Spider-Man died like this, he would be blamed. He made up his mind to develop a smart parachute first and put it first in the plan to ensure that the parachute would be in the right position when opened, not like the one in the sky. This was not the first time. Rod had already lost his life because he didn't have a parachute, and now Spider-Man was in big trouble because of the parachute he installed casually. He didn't want to see such a terrible thing happen again. The damn parachute made Spider-Man unable to break free. Fortunately, he fell into the lake and could struggle again. What if he fell directly to the ground and died? The responsibility would be all on him. When Tony thought of that result, he felt dizzy, so he had to eliminate the possibility of such a risk as much as possible. Tony picked up a glass of wine and drank it all, then looked at Banner, who was looking at him worriedly, and said, "Come on. Let's continue working." Just when Spider-Man was in big trouble, a figure with a tail flame fell from the sky into the lake. A few seconds later, a steel armor rushed out of the lake holding Spider-Man. Spider-Man was in a trance for 2 seconds before greeting Tony. "Oh, hey." Then he was relieved. He almost thought he was going to drown. The steel armor didn't answer, holding Spider-Man and speeding away from the lake, found a place to put him down. Spider-Man twisted his water-stained suit while talking about what had just happened. Then he swooped down like a demon, grabbed me and lifted me to about 1,000 feet high. Then he just threw me down. But Spider-Man misunderstood. In fact, the parachute was opened and withstood the huge wind force, so the vulture couldn't catch him and fell down. Spider-Man looked at the Iron Man in front of him curiously and asked, "How did you find me? Did you install a tracker in my suit?" "I put everything in your suit, including this heater," Tony said as he remotely activated Spider-Man's heater. A burst of heat suddenly emanated from Spider-Man's body, and Spider-Man couldn't help but moan, "Whoa. This is much better, thank you." "Huh. That's great. I thought he was going to get into trouble." Fortunately, Tony Stark arrived in time. Seeing Spider-Man being rescued, the first generation Gwen let go of the heart that was raised to her throat. Toby Spider also relaxed a lot. Just seeing that scene, Toby Spider also felt that Spider-Man was in danger. Even if he was there, it might not be easy to break free. After all, he didn't know the quality of the parachute. If he failed to tear it open in time, it would be difficult to deal with it if he was entangled. Seeing that he had saved Spider-Man, Tony also relaxed a lot. It seems that his future self is not at ease with Spider-Man acting alone and keeps an eye on him at all times. The tracker and the heater are a good idea. I should probably install them on the armor behind. Spider-Man is fine, so Tony can calm down and start thinking about how to improve the armor. After all, there must be a reason why his future self put those things. Tony believes that his future self must have thought it through carefully. No matter what the reason is, it will not be wrong to copy it. Unless there is a situation like Spider-Man that needs to be corrected, the others can be added to Mark 7 and the Spider-Man armor blueprint he is thinking about for Spider-Man in the future. Tony looked at Spider-Man and blamed him. "What are you thinking about? That winged guy is the source of this weapon. I want to kill him." Spider-Man raised his hand and said what he wanted to do. Tony was a little angry when he heard this. "You want to kill people now, right? Crockett, there are people responsible for this kind of thing. Avengers?" Hearing this, Tony immediately denied it and said, No. This matter is not at the level of their action." Spider-Man didn't care either. He thought Tony came to save him specially. "But, Mr. Stark, you don't have to come specially. I can handle it, I'm fine. Knowing that Spider-Man had misunderstood, Tony immediately explained, "Oh, I'm not here." Then he opened the mask of the Iron Man armor to show him. The scene changed. Tony was at Asen's place. It was daytime at this time. Thank God there is Wi-Fi here. Otherwise, you are out of luck now. Remember to thank Ganesha when you have time. As he was talking, a waiter brought him a glass of wine, and he took it and said, "Cheers." The scene returned to Spider-Man again. "Listen, please stop caring about that vulture guy." "Why?" Spider-Man said he didn't understand. He wanted to prove himself. "Why?" "Because I mean what I say." Spider-Man's disobedience made Tony raise his voice. At this time, a lady put a wreath on Tony, and Tony immediately apologized to her. "Sorry, I'm talking to a kid. Just keep your feet on the ground and help those ordinary people, just like you helped the lady who treated you to Spanish dough sticks last time. Can't you just be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man?" Tony took another sip of the wine and put it aside, coaxing Spider-Man. Chapter 273. But Spider-Man is a teenager now, and he only wants to do something big that will shock everyone, so he seems a little unconvinced. "But I'm ready to do big things now." Tony closed the mask of the Iron Man armor and said lightly, "No, you haven't yet. When I fought with Captain America, you didn't think so." Spider-Man complained to Tony. "Believe me, Kit, if the captain really wants to beat you up, he can beat you up. Listen to me, if you encounter this kind of weapon again, report it to Happy." Suddenly there was a roar of the engine, and Spider-Man said in surprise, "Are you driving?" Coming to Tony's side, he was fastening his seatbelt. "You know, it's never too early to think about college. I have some connections in MIT." Call ended. After saying that, he hung up the communication and drove away. "No, I don't need to go." Spider-Man raised his hand and wanted to say something, but a cold mechanical voice interrupted him. "Mr. Stark is offline." The Iron Man flew away from there, leaving Spider-Man complaining. "Great. Is he in Asia? Can he connect in real time from such a long distance?" Spider-Man felt that Tony's technological level was really extraordinary, and he could remotely control the armor from tens of thousands of kilometers away. Even if there was some help from artificial intelligence, it also seemed that the technology he mastered was even more powerful. Gwen was also a little surprised. Although they had seen Ivan Vanko remotely control the Iron Man to kill everyone at the Stark Expo, they didn't expect that he could do this across the Pacific Ocean. Unlike Gwen and the others, George felt that Tony's words made more sense. As a parent, he certainly didn't want Spider-Man and Gwen to face those dangerous villains. Isn't it easier to save people in a fire than to face those enemies with various special abilities? Spider-Man is walking alone on the way back to Liz's house and can't help complaining. "Keep your feet on the ground." What is he talking about? He continues walking carelessly and suddenly sees something on the grass by the roadside, which is the laser gun that Green dropped earlier. Seeing the high-tech weapons here, Spider-Man quickly ran up to check it out. "Whoa." He couldn't help but exclaimed. At this time, his cell phone rang again. "Man, what's wrong?" "I'm on my way back. Actually, I called to tell you that maybe you shouldn't come back. Listen to this." Ned on the other end of the phone helplessly raised the phone to let Spider-Man hear Flesh's voice. "I said bullshit. You said Parker." "Bullshit." Flesh held the microphone and taunted Spider-Man crazily. Every time he said a word, the other people at the party shouted Parker. "Sorry, Peter, I think we are still losers. See you tomorrow." Ned was helpless. He missed such a good opportunity to show off in front of others. "See you at school tomorrow." Spider-Man knew that he was very embarrassed this time. He failed as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. If Tony hadn't come to save him, he might have died. After hanging up the phone, he carefully picked up the particle laser gun. This kind of technology. Otto looked at the crudely constructed gun thoughtfully. He could see that the core was actually the glowing purple crystal, and the others were just auxiliary. Energy was emitted from the purple crystal and condensed into a particle energy cannon through the structure of the gun body. The purple crystal was the key point of this gun. Otto was very sorry that it was difficult to see similar items in their world. They were things left behind after the aliens invaded New York. If they want to get this kind of thing, maybe their world will have to encounter an alien invasion first. Toby Spider is also very interested in this, so he came to Otto early today. As long as nothing happens today, he can learn from Otto. The scene changes to the secret base of Vulture. Mason is working. Then he picks up a small cube from the table and throws it into the safe next to him. The quantum energy cube automatically separates into 4 corners, forming a purple transparent light curtain. Then Mason directly reaches through the light curtain and takes out the bottle of wine without opening the safe. But as soon as his hand came back, the base shook, and the quantum energy cube that split into 4 also fell from the safe after a tremor, and the space door then it disappeared, and Mason's hand was almost cut in half. The Vulture fell from the sky, and he angrily removed his mechanical wings, not knowing how to vent his anger. Idiot. Idiot. He took off his helmet, and threw it to the ground viciously. Another team member who was working looked up at him. Mason looked at the Vulture carefully. Boss, your wife keeps texting you. Something about the brake lights. The Vulture spread his hands and walked towards him. What did I tell you? You're still looking at my phone. Oh, sorry, you left it outside. You know I'm naturally curious. Hearing this, the Vulture was a little helpless, but couldn't get angry, so he could only put the phone in his pocket. I designed a high altitude vacuum seal. Mason told him a good news. What? The Vulture was a little confused about what Mason was talking about. What if you want to, you know, do something big? Mason hinted at him. Hearing Mason's words, Vulture knew what he was thinking about and immediately denied it. You're still thinking about that? I'm telling you, it won't happen. It's impossible. Forget about it. Wow. What is that? Some kind of space device? Tony stared at Mason with wide eyes as he took the beer out directly through the thick iron wall, feeling a little incredible. Yeah, it looks like it. In front of this kind of technology, ordinary defenses may not be able to work. If he wants to steal something, it will be much easier. Banner immediately realized the horror of this technology. Imagine that an agent wants to steal a confidential document. He needs to avoid various people and find a way to unlock some safety devices. But with this quantum energy cube, it's different. If it's big enough, it can even accommodate a person to find a place to enter directly from the outer wall, and most security measures will not be effective against it. And this is not a distant future. In a few years at most, this technology will appear. Tony can foresee that there may be a major earthquake in security next. Chapter 274. While they were talking, Herman came back in a tattered van. Green didn't know how big a mistake he had made, so he jumped out of the car with a smile on his face. Seeing his nonchalant look, Vulture was furious. Green didn't know the seriousness of the matter, so he walked forward with a smile. That was too awesome. Vulture walked forward and couldn't help but cover his forehead, trying to suppress his anger, and said, "How many times have I told you? Don't fire those in public." Green said nonchalantly, "You said you wanted to sell those goods. Keep a low profile. Keep a low profile. That's the only way we can survive. If you bring the Disaster Control Bureau or the Avengers here, we are done." Vulture was a little furious. "You were out there with that stupid thing, blowing up a car and still shouting that you were the Shocker." "I'm the Shocker. I'm here to scare people." "What's that? A nickname for professional wrestlers?" Listening to Vulture's scolding, Green walked aside with an impatient look on his face. "What do you care about me, old man? Come on." Seeing that Green hadn't realized his mistake yet, Vulture walked towards him. Listen. I know you don't care about anything, but I do. I built this place because someone needs my care." Vulture wanted to convince Green not to be so selfish and to care about the safety of other people in the team. Green perfunctorily said to Vulture, yeah. Looking at Green's nonchalant look, Vulture's anger soared, but his face calmed down instead. "You know what? I can't afford your bullshit behavior. Get out." "What?" Green looked at Vulture in surprise. "You're done. You're not one of us anymore." Vulture repeated, "Yeah. Okay." Hearing this, Green blinked and nodded. "Haha. Okay. I wonder if you can afford what I can do outside. After all, I know so much." Hearing Green's threatening words, Vulture's face changed. "What did you say? I mean, Maybe your wife will want to know where your money comes from. Green turned around and looked at Vulture and continued to threaten him. Vulture's expression remained unchanged, and he said lightly, "Do you know?" Green opened his eyes wide and looked at Vulture. "What? You're right." Vulture turned his head and looked at a gun on the table and asked Mason, "Will that work?" Mason shook his head subconsciously. "I don't know." Vulture looked at the gun, turned his head and repeated, "I can't afford it." After that, he pointed the gun directly at Green. Wait. Mason subconsciously wanted to stop it because he knew that this gun was no joke, but it was too late. As Vulture pulled the trigger, a powerful particle laser cannon shot out. Green stretched out his hand in fear and wanted to beg for mercy, but he was hit before he could open his mouth. He immediately turned into ashes from the place where he was hit, and then the whole person disappeared on the spot, leaving only a pile of ashes. The equipment on his hand was not affected and fell to the ground. Wow. Cruel. Kill anyone who threatens you directly. It seems that we need to pay special attention to this, Toombs. Captain America frowned. Wanda and Pietro on the side were both shocked when they saw this scene. They had never seen such a scene before, and Tom's face changed. He didn't expect that his future self would be so cruel and humanely destroyed Green without a word. His wife and daughter looked at him in horror. Doris had never thought that her husband would kill someone directly. She subconsciously hugged Lizzie tightly in her arms. Nick Fury squinted his eyes and wondered whether to control Toombs first and the black buyer who asked him to buy weapons. Nick Fury had already found his name. Aaron Davis. This guy also had a criminal record, but after the Sky Curtain was exposed, he had taken the initiative to turn himself in. Anyway, the crime was not serious, and the things in the Sky Curtain had not happened yet. He knew that he would not be locked up for long, but his nephew was very sad. He did not expect his uncle to buy weapons and do bad things, not to mention that his father was a policeman. At this time, the fuckman had set up a team specifically responsible for monitoring these guys who had appeared in the Sky Curtain for a long time. Everyone in the Vulture team was among them, and Toombs didn't even know he knew that he had been under surveillance since he appeared in the sky. Although many people on the internet believed that Vulture was forced to do so, many people also believed that he was selling weapons to the robbers after all and should be tried. This led to a drastic change in Toombs' living environment. Many people scolded him for helping the evil, which even affected his work and life. But he couldn't leave New York because many departments listed him as a dangerous person and banned him from leaving the city. However, Toombs also knew that no matter where he went, someone would know him, so he might as well stay in New York. As long as he was not affected by the alien war, he might have other ways out. The furious Vulture was stunned for a moment and glanced at the weapon in his hand. Herman, who was standing next to him, looked at the dead body of Green and couldn't help cursing. "Ma'am." The Vulture tilted his head and said to Mason, "I thought it was an anti-gravity gun." Mason was stunned for a moment. "What? No. That's it." He pointed at the anti-gravity gun next to him. He just thought that the Vulture wanted to kill Green directly. At this point, the Vulture no longer bothered about it. He threw the gun back on the table and walked to the place where Green was killed. He picked up the mechanical ring on the ground, cleaned up the ashes inside, and threw it to Herman. "Here, now you are the shocker. Go out and find the weapon he lost." Herman took Green's equipment and said lightly, "Alright." It turns out that he made a mistake. I thought he was cruel. I didn't expect it to be a misunderstanding, and poor Green lost his life in vain. Garfield Spider was stunned for a moment and suddenly realized, when he threatened Toombs, he should have thought that his end would not be too good. But he probably didn't expect Toombs to take the wrong weapon and kill him directly. Gwen habitually touched his nose and said, and also lamented that Green couldn't control his mouth. How could he become like this if he didn't threaten Vulture? There are many ways to make Green shut up, but killing him directly would not be a good way, because doing so would easily make other people in the team feel chilled. Green threatened Vulture alone, not his entire team. He only told Vulture how his money came from, not to expose everything their team did. So Vulture was a little regretful, but Green was already dead, so he had no choice but to bite the bullet and give his equipment to Herman. Chapter 275. Just when Vulture asked Herman to find the lost weapon, he didn't know that the gun was already in Spider-Man's hands. In the school, Spider-Man was hitting it with a hammer. After several efforts, he finally succeeded in knocking off a small piece of the parts. "Thank you so much for leaving me alone." Ned walked behind him and complained about his leaving without saying goodbye last night. "Yeah, well, something happened," Spider-Man explained. Ned looked at the purple glowing Chitauri energy core and said in shock, "Oh, what is that?" "I don't know. Some people want to use it to evaporate me." Spider-Man continued to pry, not understanding what dangerous thing he was playing with. Hearing this, Ned frowned and asked, "Really?" "Yeah. Great," Ned said subconsciously, and Spider-Man couldn't help but look at him. Ned then realized that he had said the wrong thing and added, "Oh, not cool at all. That thing is not cool at all. It's terrible." Spider-Man looked at him helplessly and continued to pry. "Well, look. I think this is an energy source." Ned squinted at its structure and said, "Yeah. But it's connected to all the microprocessors. That's an inductive charging board. I use this to charge my electric toothbrush." He pointed to some components on it and showed them to Spider-Man. Whoever made this weapon, he combined human technology with alien technology. Spider-Man was a little surprised that the other party could do this. Hearing this, Ned exclaimed, "This is simply the coolest sentence I have ever heard. I want to thank you. Let me join your journey to explore this amazing." Ned muttered to himself, but Spider-Man didn't listen to what he said at all and took the hammer and smashed the Chitauri energy core down. The noise was a bit loud, and the two were worried that they would attract the teacher's attention. Fortunately, the teacher was concentrating on reading a book and just said without raising his head, "Don't let your fingers be cut by the blade." Seeing that the teacher didn't notice their abnormality, Spider-Man was relieved. He turned his head and looked at the Chitauri energy core on the table. "I want to find out what this is. Who made this thing?" Ned immediately added, "We are going to the laboratory to do some tests after school." The two shook hands first and then made a set of gestures that belonged to them alone. "Are children nowadays so brave? He doesn't even know what it is, and he rashly hits it with a hammer. What if something unexpected happens?" Otto frowned and looked at Spider-Man's actions and said with a little dissatisfaction, "Since Sky Curtain exposed his failed experiment, Otto has been much more cautious about these experiments and possible dangerous situations. Therefore, he couldn't stand these dangerous things the most. He had clearly seen the power of this thing, but Spider-Man did it without any care. This made Spider-Man seem irresponsible. He had never considered what would happen if this energy source exploded inside the school. What if someone was injured or even died? No wonder Tony Stark had always only asked Spider-Man to do some small things, because he knew that Spider-Man was not mature enough, and he could not realize what responsibility was. It was at this time that Otto realized why Tony gave Happy the task of ensuring that Spider-Man had enough sense of responsibility. He wanted to train Spider-Man into a person who could take responsibility, instead of being a reckless man who acted recklessly without considering the consequences. He not only pried the mysterious crystal in the school, but also set off on his own when he found something wrong, and never thought of notifying Happy or Tony Stark first. Tony also noticed Spider-Man's problem, but he couldn't teach Peter Parker these things for a while, so he could only train him slowly. Fortunately, it was not too late. The teacher at school took Peter Parker to his office to remind him of his mistakes. Peter Parker nodded repeatedly. After seeing so many things, he was more mature than Spider-Man. In the corridor, Ned and Spider-Man walked side by side. "First, we have to put this luminous body into the mass spectrometer," Spider-Man said lightly. "First, we have to give it a better name than luminous body." Ned raised his mouth and said, "You are right." At this time, Spider-Man suddenly found two people coming across the corridor. He whispered, "Damn it," and then immediately dodged to the side. Then he urged Ned, who didn't know what was going on, "Come on. Come on. Come on." Ned was stunned for a moment and looked around before he saw Spider-Man hiding on the side. He then hid behind him. Spider-Man squinted and looked at the people coming. They were Herman and Mason. Mason complained, "High school really scares me. There's a strange smell here." Do you understand what I mean? Herman was holding a detector in his hand, detecting the location of the lost gun. That's one of the guys who wanted to kill me. Spider-Man whispered to Ned. What? We need to leave here. Hearing this, Ned was a little unbelievable and immediately suggested leaving this dangerous place first. No. I want to follow them. They can lead me to the person who threw me into the lake. Spider immediately denied his idea. Ned was surprised. Someone threw you into the lake. Yeah. That doesn't feel good at all. Spider saw Herman and the others enter a classroom, so he followed them. Ned looked at him worriedly, with a little excitement and fear at the same time. Peter. Spider immediately stopped Ned from following. No. Stay there, Ned. Spider followed carefully behind. Ned called him again, but Spider firmly stopped him from following. At this time, a classmate who discovered them knocked on the glass and asked Ned, "What are you doing?" Ned was startled and immediately pretended that nothing happened. Nothing. Yeah. What about you? This classmate was just a student and was in school, so he didn't suspect anything. So he pointed to another female classmate and answered, "Playing chess." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.